Okay, welcome everyone. I am very happy to present and host the very first World Pricing Day. I must admit that, emphasizing the importance and strategic importance of pricing has been literally in the DNA of our company since its inception. So we specialize in e-commerce pricing. I will come to that later. But really, we always felt that pricing deserves a more strategic level across the corporate, across any sizes of companies. But we always noticed that it's sort of kind of neglected. It's not really like emphasized as much as it really deserves. And this World Pricing Day idea has been, like I said, an idea since the beginning of our company. And we sort of flirted with organizing the event basically like heavily in the last 2 years. So like 2 years ago, we came up with this idea, but didn't have enough time to really arrange things, invite people and so on. And last year, we sort of got closer to an organization, but again, couldn't really make it. And this year, our team basically did the heavy lifting and managed an absolutely like amazing organization skills. And actually, we finally put something together, and I am absolutely again happy to present and also like as you see over here, like host the very first World Pricing Day. So basically today is like September 9th. Coming to the like cheesy part of, the reason why we picked this day, it's like 9.9 and, it's a psychologically important day when it comes to pricing. And, we are today together to talk pricing again on the very first World Pricing Day. So I believe like 5 years later, 10 years later, maybe, 15 years later, you guys like who are now connected, who are now tuned in, will remember and maybe say that, well, I remember one guy talking about this World Pricing Day, and it was the event year one, and I was there. So I really believe that at some point we will come to, this type of position in the future. So let's start then. So we have a really, really jam-packed agenda, and I will firstly would like to start with myself. So like a bit about myself. So I am, as you see over here, Burc, and I'm the CEO of Pricing, which is an e-commerce pricing optimization company. So on internet circles, so like on Twitter, LinkedIn, etc., I'm also known like the e-commerce pricing guy, because basically I eat, sleep, read, whatever you say, like e-commerce pricing. And once again, it's a great honor for me today to do this keynote, like alongside amazing lineup of pricing experts, which I will also introduce in a while. And also, like aside from that, I would also like to send a big thanks to pricing team, our marketing team, for pulling this event together, because like I said, we have been flirting with this idea for years. We actually, like I said, got closer to arranging it last year, like also somewhat close 2 years ago, but this year we finally make it. So marketing team of Pricing, you guys rock. Thanks a lot for the effort. So like I will firstly would like to again emphasize one very basic thing, which is like to know that pricing matters. And I would also like to expand a little on this. So why pricing really matters. So the first one will be actually explaining why we are talking pricing. Then I will be basically explaining why now. So like why today, why this year, why during this kind of turbulent environment. And also I will briefly introduce the speakers to you. And also I will try to give a little more insight on the format of today. But really, as I will also explain in a while, I would really like to elaborate, like explain our anticipation and our vision for the future events in the coming years when it comes to World Pricing Day. So this is kind of the first, basically like zeroth event of this concept. So we would like to arrange this on an annual basis, alongside our partners and all that. But I will also come to that part later. So this is still an idea in the making. This is kind of the POC of the idea. So I really thank you for taking part in the POC. And I really hope to see you again in the next year's event. But we still have something planned for this year, obviously. So I will actually, like I said, explain why pricing really matters. And, basically, it matters a lot. And the reason is that, the reason I would like to talk about pricing is that, like I said in the very beginning, its status is terribly kind of like lost, I would say, in the organization. So it's supposed to be a, team sports. But, some companies prefer to hire a pricing manager. Some companies delegate this task to, marketing, some to sales, etc. So its spot actually in the organization schema, organization charts, is somewhat like confusing. So you really don't know where you belong to in most cases. Maybe some of our, attendees today are actually not at that point because like probably they are already involved with pricing, so they have their position in the company. But this is actually far from being common, in my point of view and in our point of view. So we felt that this makes it absolutely important to really start talking about pricing. It's important and all that. And again, I think pricing know-how, pricing knowledge, as we will also go through today's presentations, is very fragmented. So I mean, some people are talking about B2B pricing, some people are talking about, I don't know, value-based pricing and all that. And people are having a hard time to really combine all this know-how. So it's really fragmented. So different disciplines of pricing are not really talking to each other enough. So the idea today is also somewhat bringing those type of like individuals with specific expertise across different spectrums of pricing together, so that they will actually try to provide you a compact, combined content, which will hopefully help you to polish up your pricing know-how and pricing skills eventually. So moving on with the pricing matters a lot part. I mean, the idea here is that, pricing really dictates your brand. And I think brand is, needless to say, the very important part of all your go-to-market, all your marketing, etc. So people really correlate that a lot with your brand image, etc. And obviously brand image eventually is what people buy. So at the end of the day, price is really, at the end of the day, it's actually what you really sell and what merchants are buying. And after all, that's all about business. So I really believe that it just matters a lot. And just to provide a few statistics, this also actually, like, I think in the 65%, I think you also belong to that. I also belong to that. Only 1/3 of the shoppers are not really in this part. But we maybe even sometimes without knowing it, really compare all the single prices across the market. So when we shop something, even offline, we check out our mobile phones, try to spot a better price point, and actually then divert our purchase decision. So this is actually a significantly important statistic. So 65% of shoppers, when doing offline shopping, they still actually care about prices. And the other idea is that when asked, about their main purchase criteria, what really drives their purchases, 85% consumers are actually naming price as the most important criteria. So this is actually I don't know. I probably don't even need to talk further after actually showing this 85% stat, but to me, it's really striking enough. And coming to the why now part. So like I said, I really believe, I think I proved that already, but I really believe that pricing matters a lot. So it's worth talking about pricing, it's worth organizing this event, but also talking a bit about why we are doing this now is also important. And to my point of view, as I'm actually the e-commerce pricing guy, like, time is always now for pricing. But as we brought you guys together for a single day throughout this actually turbulent time of the market and so on, I would like to emphasize two major reasons why it really matters, especially like higher than average. So the first part, is, like, needless to say, the inflation. So we are, like, across the world are like dealing with various impacts of pricing, inflation. So it obviously impacts our purchase power, it impacts various bits of supply chain and all that. And merchants, mostly like in developed markets, like already like structured markets, are also now feeling the impacts of inflation, so that their costs are rising. So unless they do something about pricing, they won't really survive. So we came to that point when it comes to pricing, because before inflation, before significantly high inflation, you could have picked the absolutely unstrategic direction of not changing your price at all, not optimizing them at all, and you could have made some profit, you could have sustained your business. But unless you do something now, it's guaranteed that you will be out of business. So inflation maybe finally, I don't like to say this, but maybe finally made the actually awareness across the industry that pricing is also a lever. It can help you to it can first of all like help you to survive, but also it can help you to obviously like grow your business further. And the second reason why it matters now is that, like, again, I don't want to say thanks to COVID, but we have been going through a COVID-induced like digital transformation. So this particular digital transformation is important in the sense that now, like, the majority of transactions are happening in a digital way, not necessarily just online, but people are now preferring like digital transactions in the sense that they are not any longer like requesting information, requesting pricing information about a purchase that they will make, but they would like to, click next, fill in some information, and then eventually they would like to know what they are going to pay for a service, for a product. E-commerce is actually the top of the funnel for this. So like in e-commerce, we are all used to seeing the price of a product, knowing about the product and making the purchase. But, across a wide spectrum, we are now seeing this, and Jochen will probably mention this in the B2B part, like the last presentation, don't miss that. So we are now seeing a major digital transformation, which makes pricing even relevant for industries where it was not maybe that relevant, and where it was absolutely static. So because of inflation and because of this massive digital transformation we are going through, it's definitely a must to talk about pricing. And obviously, I would like to briefly mention the lineup that we put together for this event, and I'm absolutely proud for managing this sort of lineup for this event. And the reason why I'm proud is that we, I think, found a really complementary set of speakers today. To start with, very briefly, we will have Joe speaking first, and he will be actually talking about the talent side of things to actually categorize the speeches. And then comes Markus. So probably many of you might know Markus about his book, about his studies, etc. And he will actually try to emphasize the importance of psychological pricing. And then we will have Laura, and she will also talk about the holistic aspect of pricing. So she will actually try to put pricing in a holistic commercial excellence context. And then we will have Sanda from our team, from pricing, talking about the most important and primary e-commerce pricing strategies. And then finally, like I said in the beginning, Jochen from Pricefx will actually talk about what B2B can learn from B2C. And obviously, last but not least, we have you as part of the event. So it's not only about speakers, but we also have you here. And I really like this map, so I just kind of requested particularly to add this into our slide, because this map demonstrates with a single image that pricing is absolutely relevant across the world. So it's a global phenomenon, so it's really relevant across the world because, digital transformation is happening, without borders. Inflation is also unfortunately happening without borders. So thanks to you guys, we are now together with hundreds of pricing professionals across, I don't know, I didn't count it, but maybe across 50 plus countries. So, just to wrap up, I would also like to talk about, how we are really planning to, run this event today. So, like I said in the beginning, please regard this event as the 0th event of the series. So, if there will be any glitches, technical glitches, content glitches, etc., please, I would like to first of all apologize for any of that. But please regard this event as a kind of community event where we try to bring all you guys together to actually celebrate the importance of pricing, I would say. The format today will be online, and we will have 15 to maybe 20-minute presentations from each and every speaker. And then the most important part is that you will have a Q&A section where you will be able to actually write your questions in our chat box. And the more important part is that I would like to let you know from any corner of the world, from any part of the pricing spectrum, that we are open for collaborations for the coming year's events. So for next year's pricing day, feel free to recommend any kind of organization tips, any recommendational lineup, etc. So our marketing team is absolutely open for collaborations. So just to spice things up a bit, I would also like to let you know that for all the attendees that actually approved after event communications, our marketing team will send a quiz material. And you can also access the quiz from the QR code that you see on your screen. And this quiz will actually have a few questions about today's presentations, about the generics of pricing, so that when you respond to them in a correct way, you will get these very valuable pricing books as a gift. I would strongly encourage you to actually take a look at the quiz and hopefully read these books. So thanks a lot once again for listening to my keynotes, but more importantly, put me aside. Thanks a lot for being part of today, the very first World Pricing Day. So here are my contact details. So my email address is burc@pricing.com. I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn, so feel free to connect. Feel free to discuss anything pricing with me. But again, as I said, I am mostly inclined towards the e-commerce side of things, but I'm fascinated by any sort of pricing-related aspect. Once again, thanks a lot for taking part in this year's World Pricing Day. And I will leave the stage now to Joe, again, to talk about the talent side of things. I'm sure you will enjoy that, but I'm sure you will enjoy every single presentation today. Thanks for taking the very first, maybe 0th World Pricing Day.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Burc. Thanks for the great introduction. Great to be here. So I'm Joe Fleming.
Joe, are you there?
Yes.
We can't hear you, I guess. They are telling me, like, this is the glitch that I was talking about. This might happen. So, like, again, I apologize sincerely for this type of glitches, but I think, let me stop sharing my screen, check out what's going on. Joe, are you on mute?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I think, yeah, we can hear you. Okay, please go ahead. Thanks a lot for taking part again, Joe.
No, great. Well, great to be here. And thanks very much for the good introduction there, Burc. Just to introduce myself again, so I'm Joe Fleming. I'm really pleased to have been invited by Prisync on their inaugural World Pricing Day to share some thoughts on pricing recruitment with you all. Just very briefly on us, so VenorTech, we're a recruitment company that I started with my business partner, Ben Jackson, about 14 years ago. On Ben's side of the business, he's focused very much on SaaS startups and scale-ups. My side is purely pricing and pricing-related recruitment. So we've been working with software and consulting companies and industry to help them find their people and establish and build their pricing capability. So whether that might be their first pricing hire for a chemicals company or a pricing scientist for a software vendor. So hopefully I can share some insights with you today just to give you some perspective on a good way to approach this and how you might be able to improve your own recruitment efforts. So just before we get into it, I know I'm just about to PowerPoint you. And now I think it's a little known fact that at any point in time, right around the clock, right around the world, there are between 5 and 5.5 million PowerPoints being delivered. Just imagine all those poor people trying to stay awake. So another little known fact is the average person will only retain around 5% of the information they receive. So on the basis I've got you for the next 15 minutes, that would mean you'll be retaining about 45 seconds worth. So I'll do my best to make sure it's the most important bits that you can recall. So better get on with it. Here we go. So what we're going to do is look at how to attract and hire pricing talent. So I'm going to take you through a current hiring landscape just to see what the situation is at the minute. Moving on to the challenges and the opportunities that throws up, looking at who and how you're targeting these people and actually managing that process. And then a bit at the end, just around career and personal development. So hopefully it's high level enough to give you a good overview, but there's some detail in there to give you some actionable takeaways. What would be really good is, as we're going through, if you can keep in mind this question: how can a company connect with an individual? Which I think is a great North Star to go by. So, looking at the market, having been through probably the hottest jobs market since we started the business back in 2008, to now seeing some of the headlines that are currently floating around, there's certainly change in the air. Accurate layoff and jobs numbers are pretty hard to come by, but even with some degree of error, if you compare the two figures on the side here, there's still plenty of activity out there. With inflation running rife, it's certainly given the pricing community a lot to talk about. How much you read into some of the more media-driven hype is up to you, but thinking about how these things affect people is certainly going to help you better position your own opportunities. I think there's a feeling in the market that it's cooling, but companies are definitely still hiring. This has also coincided though with the usual summer slowdown, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens come September and October as everyone returns from holiday and their minds shift back to work. With lots of big global factors at play, trying to forecast how these will develop and affect your own market is incredibly difficult. But for now, we're seeing an element of caution with regards to growth plans. Even if there is this shift in hiring demand, the recent ultra-competitive market has shown companies are not that well equipped when it's exceeding supply. Whichever direction the market goes in, there are some good lessons to be learned. So what does this mean for companies trying to hire? It seems people are harder to find, or at least harder to engage. They're more expensive as well. So if your hiring process isn't lean and robust, particularly in a candidate short market, this is going to be exposed, which is why we've ended up with some of the examples on this slide. Remember, You're probably not Google, so you can't have a recruitment process that looks like theirs. However, another company's poor hiring practice is an opportunity for you to steal a march on the competition. It's in this space that there's the chance to make the most of a difficult situation. With modern recruitment tools, it's very easy to get carried away with automating processes, but volume rarely beats quality. But it's easy to forget this when there's the pressure on to hire people. So I'm sure everyone will have some experience with this kind of thing here. Over the last year, with the competition being so high, we've encouraged our clients to actually try and change their mindset. So that's making the switch from having an expectation of what can the candidate do for us to what can we as a company do for you. Again, this is really trying to put the individual front and center. It's trying to get away from the thinking that the interview process is your chance to audition people, and instead into having a conversation with the person to see if there's a mutual interest. This is good practice for any role, but fine-tuning it further to your pricing audience is how you can really stand out. So just before we talk about that, I thought it was worth reminding ourselves of the primary reason people give for leaving a company. And on the flip side, what makes another opportunity look interesting. Reverse engineering these reasons to avoid them can ensure that you don't become one of these statistics. I actually did a copywriting for recruiters course a while back and really got into thinking about this. At its core was making everything candidate, not company centric, such as using top-down language like you and your, avoiding cliches like passionate, dynamic, and exciting opportunity. And if you're describing yourselves as market leading, just really make sure that you can evidence that claim. So it might be that you have little involvement at this stage of the process, as it's more down to HR, but if you're not getting the results you want, perhaps it's worth getting a little bit more involved. So who are you targeting? When we think about the available market, we segment this into industry, consulting, and software. You may need to have a different strategy for each group. When you think about your available market, do you limit yourself to people that have only worked in B2C, B2B, must have, maybe it's grocery retail experience, or people that are just actively looking? If you're able to broaden this criteria, you can immediately increase the size of the pool. We know from experience, getting people to do this though is easier said than done. Everyone's on a different path and will value different things, but we know some of the common concerns and motivations people have from coming from certain sectors. So if we look at the examples here, by thinking through your own candidate personas, you can dial into these and more accurately address people's needs. So again, if we take remote versus in office that we saw earlier, there's been a big switch to remote, but does the city-based graduate living in a tiny studio flat really want to work from home, or would they prefer to be in an office with in-person interaction? So after you've figured out who you're targeting, it's about where you think you can find them and what's the best means of contacting them. Possibly think about what's worked for you in the past. When you're searching for a niche skill set, hoping someone will apply directly can be a waiting game, which is why you really need to think through what's going to cut through and speak to the person, making sure that you hit all those key notes, what someone wants from a pricing role. So things we commonly hear that people are looking for is a senior reporting line so that pricing can really affect change, clear function, remit and goals, good reason why pricing is sat, whether it's under sales, marketing or finance, and a job description, not a job advert, that proves that you really know what you're looking for. These days, for us, beyond our own network, still the number one place to find people is LinkedIn, which certainly has its pros and cons. Cold outreach on LinkedIn and email is still hugely popular, partly due to how easy it is, but despite the volume of messages people receive these days, done well, it's still highly effective. Time spent researching, crafting, and writing personalized messages is most definitely not wasted. Think about yourself. What would you be most likely to respond to? A job ad, a generic mail merge email, or a direct message from the hiring manager explaining why they're interested in you? Time consuming, but for your next hire, maybe pick out 5 people on LinkedIn and give it a go. Beyond this, A more effective long-term plan is to build your own talent pool or community. Maybe find someone that already has one. I know this is a little out of scope for the presentation, but it's definitely worth thinking about. So just moving on, your team. Not many companies have the luxury of being able to hire a full and balanced pricing team, especially at the beginning. When teams are small or the company is making its first pricing hire, the skills mix and required experience can be a really challenging combination to find. Can you budget for a full-blown pricing head and find someone that's still prepared to roll their sleeves up? Do you promote and develop internally, or do you find someone that's ready to progress and give them the chance at a bigger role? I think in a lot of cases, maybe B2C is a bit ahead of B2B in terms of their pricing team's maturity. But the common issue we see for a first hire is that a company wants someone that's an uneven combination of VP, manager, and analyst. They're looking for a pricing manager that can also strategize and influence, be tactical, but part data analyst. Trying to find this person that also has market knowledge at a mid-level salary range is a big headache, and that's talking from experience. If you can't justify a director or VP level hire, maybe consider something else. Finding someone that isn't quite the finished article but needs some support. You then find an expert external pricing consultant to coach the person and mentor them until they're ready to take full control. Matching realistic responsibilities to the right role with a sensible salary package will make the process a whole lot easier. Getting this wrong leads to long, drawn-out hiring processes and often with lots of changes and disagreements along the way, which in turn leads to a poor candidate experience and failure to hire the person you want. So if you don't really know what you're looking for, this is going to stand out a mile. Having well thought through and robust definitions for role types is a must, and also forces important internal discussions across business units. If you don't have these already, it's a good place to start. All of this effort, however, can be wasted if you're providing a poor candidate experience. It may make the difference at the end of the process. I know a lot of this seems basic and obvious, but is it actually being done? Individual and timely feedback, addressing concerns, checking salary expectations. If it's a really important hire, taking that person out for a coffee. It can all make a difference. Think about what can really set you apart. Have you ever been made to feel wanted through a recruitment process, or does it feel like it's for the company's benefit and not yours? I mentioned at the beginning, trying to cut through this is very difficult. Often with the company being the person and the relationship, remembering that the individual is key. With the level of competition and skills out there, it's really worth the lack of effort. And assuming the best person is simply going to walk through the process and accept an offer at the end is leaving a lot to chance. Pricing gives you a massive opportunity and exposure to different parts of the business. So you need to make sure you're communicating on this. So just a bit about the development on that. People always have a lot of questions about their career and direction of it. Some have it all planned out. Undergrad degree, then masters, into industry, MBA, consulting, path to partner. Might sound good on paper, but life rarely allows you to stick to your plan. It's worth having that though, but you need to be practical. It's worth stopping occasionally and asking yourself, are you really enjoying what you're doing? Easy to overlook. And then, is it helping you to get to where you want to go? And if not, what needs to change? A question we often ask is, did you always want to get into pricing? And it's rarely a straightforward yes as an answer. But I'm sure you don't need me to tell you what a great role it is to be in, with access to so many different functions across the business, from sales, marketing, finance and operations, and access to senior leadership. This gives you a great opportunity to explore the different directions you might want to go in. We've seen an explosion in the number of companies in industry taking pricing seriously, or even at all, in recent years. And this has certainly been backed up with the amount of supporting software and consulting companies that have also recognized this. More and more roles being created at that leadership level. So that's about it. Hope it was useful, and I'd be happy to try and answer some questions now.
All right, thanks, Joe. I think we already have a question from David, so I will actually just direct that to you right away. So David asks, what should we look for in a new pricing hire first? I think it's a very, very good first question for a Q&A session.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. And yeah, I think, on that particular slide that I had, which shows the range of different things that people are looking for, defining the person yourselves internally can be a challenge, and getting the right people involved to that, is crucially important. But essentially, I think there are some core skills that you need to get down, and it's figuring out if you need somebody to lead on strategy, if you need somebody to do the tactical part, and if you need an analyst. I think once you've got the combination of that down, there are a certain number of kind of core and key skills that the person needs. We've actually got some templates for that VP role, for the manager role, and for the analyst role that we'll be happy to share afterwards. Yeah, I think knowledge of the market, analytical skills, being able to influence across the organisation, are kind of three core things that are definitely very important.
Yeah, great. Well, Michael rightfully commented almost all companies are struggling for pricing professional hires. I think nowadays it's even more common. So they thank you, Joe, and I thank you as well. And another question comes from Amy. So what's the most common mistake you see companies making when trying to hire pricing people? So the wrong side of things. So what's the most common mistake you see?
Yeah, so I think probably the most common mistake is, when it's the first hire, particularly misallocating the budget to the person you're looking for. So often we speak to people and they say they've had a conversation with a company and it's a really interesting role, it's a really interesting company, but when it comes to the salary, they've kind of got it completely wrong. So maybe they've taken their read from sales, maybe they've taken their read from finance, but they haven't really gone to the market and done some sensible benchmarking. So they're speaking to people and essentially they think they can't afford them, but that's what they need to pay to get the person on. And so figuring that out before you actually start looking for them, I think is probably one of the biggest challenges. Otherwise you have the wrong, you're speaking to the people you're interested in, but you're not able to actually close them and bring them on board.
Okay, great. Well, maybe I can add, on top of Michael's comments. So as we rightfully believe that now is a maybe hard time to really identify the right pricing candidate. So what I will basically ask a question, by the way. So do you have any particular, let's say, trend observation in the last 5-year time horizon, for example, pre-COVID, during COVID, and after COVID, during this inflationary environment? I mean, have you seen any change of demand in pricing talent, Joe, yourself, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did about a couple of years ago now, we put together a pricing landscape. And that's kind of the second one we've done. And on there, I think there are about 90 odd companies. So that covered software vendors and consultancies. And we're just in the process of revamping that. And there's now the best part of 200 companies on there.
Okay.
And yes, it's phenomenal. And if I think when we started trying to recruit pricing people, kind of probably 15 years ago, searching for the skills and the individuals was a lot tougher because they kind of didn't exist. Or you might have people that have been dragged in from other departments, other business units. But now I think it's becoming a much more formally recognized role, career. If you look at some of the kind of the PPSs and EPPs out there, where you can get formal kind of qualifications, which employers will ask for as well. So there's definitely a big change, a big shift in that. And I think the proliferation of the supporting sides. I mean, companies like yourself. There's I think more and more competition. Month by month. Because it's such an important topic, and it seems people are kind of banging on and on about pricing being the that most important profit lever, and once people recognise that, so we had, it's probably a little bit related to kind of COVID and what have you, but from our point of view, we had our best and busiest year the year before last, and it looks like this year is going to beat last year. And yeah, it's really down to kind of that demand and the levels that people are now willing to hire pricing people into.
Yeah, well, that absolutely, I think, solidifies this idea, that I mentioned in the beginning. Why we should really talk about pricing now? Because you just said that now we have an inflation, so people are all rushing to solve their pricing problems. And during COVID, like as you had your best year, there was, I think, a massive digital transformation. So all those transactions, also like transactions including obviously pricing, needed someone to configure, optimize, or whatever. So people were basically Michael, we still have, I think, enough time for additional questions. So feel free to shoot. And I see now Kara also has a question. So thanks for the great session, great talk, she says, Joe. So I think this question might resemble the very first one, but I think it's a more broader question. So what are the main factors we should be looking at when hiring pricing people? So maybe not the very first thing that we look, but if you actually boil things down to, I don't know, a checklist of like 3-5 main bullet points, I believe we have quite a few people tuning in now just to listen to you, Joe, because they are now in the process of hiring. So I think any actionable tip that you might try to provide will be discussed tomorrow during the workday.
Okay, but I mean, are we done with anything else you want to pick up?
What?
Sorry, is that finished or any more questions you want?
No. I was actually just saying the question, what are the main factors we should be looking at when hiring pricing people? Main factors, Kara asks.
So I think main factors, it's really about aligning the person with what you're trying to do, and sometimes looking past a little bit people coming just directly from your competitors. I think there are a lot of skills now that we seem to be seeing a lot more crossover from B2C, B2B. I think both industries, one can learn from the other. But I think some of the qualifications from the pricing companies out there, are definitely worth looking at. But strong influencing skills, being having ability to use some of the the good analytical packages, kind of the tableaus and the clicks and that kind of thing. Being able to work across different business units, being able to get people to work together, good change managers, all useful. And I think it's sometimes figuring out, do you need somebody with more of a finance background, a smart finance person, or do you need somebody that has got more of those strategy skills? So it's a case of looking at, you're going to hire directly from industry, or do you want somebody who's coming from consulting? And I think and then it's a case of looking at what are their motivations, what are their drivers? Are they used to working kind of that very sort of high-paced environment? Is it more of a kind of a sales-driven organization? I think people with sales backgrounds typically always work well. Perhaps with pricing these days, not just living under finance. It's a bit more of a trend. People starting to report into sales, for instance. So people that have that kind of mindset. So I think good, well-rounded individuals, good influencers, change managers. And if they've got some knowledge of having seen sort of pricing in action previously, obviously that's a good starting point.
Okay, cool. Well, the next question is actually a great one. I could have also asked that, so I will just say that Michael asks us to change the perception a bit, Joe. So his question is actually, what's the typical career path and options for someone in pricing? So how to start, basically. So what to study, I don't know. What's the first job that you should take, and so on. So what's the ideal, typical career path you would mention?
Yeah, sure. So I think that, again, depends, where you're going into. If you're going into industry or you're going into consulting. But sales backgrounds are always good. I think, companies like to see that, because you gives you, a good base understanding. If that's coming straight out of university, more and more we're seeing companies look for people that have also got not necessarily coding skills, but the ability to write simple SQL queries, that kind of thing. So good solid Excel background is definitely helpful. People that maybe are in finance, but they're looking for something that there's a bit more of a people orientation in there. I think they're all good places to look. And as far as looking at that kind of typical career path, yeah, I don't know how typical that career path is, but I think what we've seen, there's been a bit of a change, and we kind of seen it where, so I think sometimes with pricing still be seen as quite niche. People are worried about being pigeonholed, and they think if I stay in pricing, am I going to get stuck there? And I guess some people want to be stuck there, and they kind of love it. But if you're looking to kind of go up and up, it's easier to keep moving upwards if you're in sales or marketing or something.
Yeah.
But I think you get exposure to so many of those, other different business units. You can also, it gives you a feel for, what you might or what you might like, or what you don't enjoy so much. And it's nowadays it's really easy as well to hop out from industry into consulting. People go independent, go work for, if you now look at, the McKinseys, Bains, the BCGs, and then kind of your best, more sort of boutique independent, the Simon Kuchers of this world, they've got, huge opportunities in all of those companies. And yeah, I would say, now kind of people get to that sort of senior manager and director level. There are VP positions that definitely weren't available previously. And yeah, just need to do a kind of a search for LinkedIn on that. But an interesting one, a few years ago, there's a guy who was in industry, so he was kind of VP level. He bounced around a couple of the very, very kind of big US companies that you'd have heard of. And he used to say in his kind of earlier days, that beyond manager, he would never accept pricing in his job title, which I thought was quite an interesting thing. And he says kind of two reasons on that. He said the one is nobody else in the organization could understand what he actually did. They didn't know what he did. And the second one was that he felt it put a cap on his salary because, yeah, people just didn't quite understand it. They didn't know what he did. And he said there'd been, a change in that. And now kind of people get that. And so, yeah, he doesn't need to worry about that anymore. So I hope that's kind of, I know it's just kind of anecdotes and that kind of thing, interesting. And there does seem to definitely be kind of a change on that front.
Yeah, well, great answer. So this question and your answer, Joe, kind of made me think about maybe like an additional context in World Pricing Days of coming years. So maybe the study part, the academics part might be also relevant. We will have Markus obviously like demonstrating enough material in that sense, but like I actually recently came across with like pricing professionals who really studied pricing, in Spain, I don't know, in Portugal, in Poland, for example. I personally know some pricing departments in universities in probably like graduate level, but I think there are also some now in undergraduate level. So maybe like next year, like bringing some, I don't know, professors, etc., from such departments of some prestigious universities might also make sense. So I think it would be a context even more preliminary than yours. So like where to study, what to study, how to study, and then how to get a job, etc. So maybe in the pricing, let's say, professional journey, it might be a good topic. So please, pricing marketing team, note this down. And next year, when we are actually looking for like speakers, let's try to find one. So I guess we are almost out of time, but Kent is typing a question. So, but as we really would like to stick with our agenda, Kent, if that would be a question that could be answered in 1 minute, please write it down or maybe give up. Well, as you wish. I will give you like 5 seconds. Like, let's see how fast you can type. Okay, can't give up. Sorry for that, Kent. But anyway, Joe, I really thank you, first of all, for accepting our invite, for being a speaker in this one. It was a great pleasure to have you as one of the speakers. So yeah, Kent was actually writing a comment, I guess. So there is certified pricing professional, CPP, you can gain from Pricing Society, which is one of the educational materials. Thanks a lot for the input, Kent. So yeah, I was saying, Joe, thanks a lot for taking part, and I really hope to see you in next year's lineup as well after we discuss it. Thanks a lot for taking part.
Sure thing. Thanks, Burc.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, so I hope you all like enjoyed. like Joe School, and now we have Markus, smiling face as always. I would say. How are you doing, Markus?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's an
great.
excellent event, by the way. I'm
Yeah,
thrilled
thanks.
that
Well,
I'm a founding member.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you are. You can tell this to your, I don't know, children, grandchildren years later. That's the idea. Hopefully, that you are actually one of the speakers in the very first World Pricing Day. But again, as I just said to Joe, I mean, I will say this in advance to you. Like, thanks a lot for giving us and giving the listeners the opportunity to listen to you in this very first World Pricing Day. I'm super excited about your presentation. So, without any further, actually, like time stealing, I will just leave the mic and stage to you. Feel free to shoot your presentation.
Thank you so much. By the way, can you see it? I see it on my screen, but
all clear.
All clear. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me on my session on how to grow in e-commerce with the power of psychological pricing. And if I could express one wish, my sincere wish is that I leave you with 2 sparks of inspiration on how to grow. My name is Markus Husemann-Kopetzky, and I'm grateful and honored to be here with you. So, how do I express my passion for pricing? I'm a researcher at the Free University at Berlin. I'm grateful to author 2 books on psychological pricing, and I recently launched the blog, The Pricing Nuggets. And if you have a chance to watch the videos, I hope you enjoy watching the videos as much as I did shooting them. And where the rubber meets the road, I founded a company that helps e-commerce companies to professionalize their pricing function. And in the past, I was in consulting and in retail. And I want to leave you with the impression that you are in good hands today. So, how to grow in e-commerce with the power of psychological pricing. And I would like to stick a bit with psychological pricing because my impression is, and that's what I experienced talking about psychological pricing, is that it has kind of a fluffy and soft connotation and is not like real hard price optimization based on price elasticity and AI. We change this perception today. So what we are not going to do is we don't browse through an interesting collection of so many psychological pricing effects and get inspired. What we do today, we look into a systematic and structured approach how to apply psychological pricing. So it's not a lecture on what all you can do, but actually how to do it. And I think that's really insightful. So we talk about growth, and when we talk about growth, my impression is we need to look at 2 things. Where do we expect to find growth actually? So where should the additional revenue actually come from? And second, okay, once we understood where to find growth opportunities, how do we trigger them? So what should we do to make the growth happen? So, and now I would like to go and cover both of these questions. Where do we find or expect additional growth and additional revenue to come from? And here I would like to share a garden metaphor with you. So how do I see the growth coming from in the session today? So what is my core assumption? My core assumption is we have a garden with fixed boundaries, left, right, above and below, and this is just our garden. And what we want to do is to get more fruits out of the same garden, within the same business setup. What we are not going to do is we grow and just buy the neighbor's garden and grow by adding more countries to our business model or to penetrate a given market with more channels. We take our business setup and find growth opportunities there. So we become more efficient or more effective with extracting growth out of a given opportunity. That's how I would frame it. So what is our garden and what are the sources that deliver growth to us? If you have a given business set up, the source of revenue and additional revenue are your customers. So it might be a no-brainer, but this is where I would like to start off. So within your garden, you have your potential and your existing customers. Those who are already addressed by your business and the market that you have chosen. And those customers were not only addressed, but also already buying from you. So customers. And to make it more tangible and manageable, you need to structure your customer relationships and this customers that you have, the customer relationships that you have with your company. And how would I do it? You can look at it from two different perspectives. The first perspective is you look into single customer journeys. They last a few sessions, depending on how you track them, days or weeks. And you look into single transactions of customers. They visit your website, they browse around, they click on the product detail page, add something to cart and buy it. So, and if you want to analyze this kind of customer journey, you could apply a straightforward funnel conversion analysis, which means pretty much look into the probabilities that customers move through predetermined stages within your customer journey. So what is the percentage of those who visit and browse and click on a detail page and so on. So customer journeys and a funnel analysis to quantify what is happening within this customer relationship. So now we take a 30,000 feet level view on your customer base. So we're not looking into customer journeys anymore, but at groups or cohorts of customers who are more or less in the same life cycle stage. For example, you have all customers grouped together who are, let's say, visitors. They are aware of your company but haven't bought anything. Then you have your first-time buyers grouped together, your sporadic or opportunistic buyers, those that come only to your place when it's Black Friday and you have an awesome deal. Then you have those who are repeat buyers, who regularly buy from you in regular intervals. Then you have your diehard buyers who would never buy somewhere else. Then you have those who unfortunately cool down a bit and buy less, and those that buy not anymore. They are gone. And here you also look into different ways to analyze your customer lifecycle stages and which stages are more or less important to you. And one way to do it is to evaluate the importance of each stage. For example, like the revenue in the trailing 12 month. And you look into the transition probabilities moving from one stage to another. That's kind of rough first analysis you could do to get an idea what is happening in your customer lifecycle stages within a stage and the dynamic between them. So why is this important? We need a target behavior that we want to trigger. Keep this in mind. We want to understand what should the customer do tomorrow? What is he or she is not doing today? And this helps us to optimize our customer relationships. Let's look at an example of a customer journey. And the same rationale, by the way, applies to customer lifecycle stages. But let's look at a very simple customer journey. Customers enter a certain term in Google search. They end up at your online shop. They use the internal search, find something that's interesting, click on it, go to the product detail page, decide how many units do they need, add them to the cart, check out the cart, and they pay for the purchase. Okay, what kind of stage within this customer journey does require our attention and a bit of optimization? what you could do is you take the whole customer journey and you work yourself through it and optimize everything. You start with Google search. What can you do in terms of pricing that increase the probability from moving from a Google search result to your shop? Then you optimize the way from moving from internal search results to the product detail page, adding something to your cart and paying for it. How you work yourself through this one. But what I would recommend if you don't have unlimited time, you could apply a bit of statistical analysis and find out, okay, out of the different stages in this customer journey, what is the most important one? And this most important one is a function of elasticity. So if I change it by a bit, let's say if I improve it by 1%, what is the overall impact on the final result? And second, how much room of improvement do I have? For example, if my abandoned cart rate, so those guys, they put something in and they don't buy anything, is already 0%, there's not much room to improvement. Or if your internal conversion rate from search results to detail pages is just 2%, and usually you would expect 20%, you might also look into this one. So you analyze your customer journey or your customer lifecycle stages, and you find this is the spot I would like to focus on. And this gives you the target behavior that you look into. And again, funnel conversion analysis might be helpful. So don't be afraid of analytics. This is actually helpful. So where do we find or expect additional revenue to come from? We look into our garden of customers and look either within single stages, like we want to improve, for example, their behavior on the product detail page, and for example, make them buy more units. So in this stage, we make it, we don't focus on the conversion rate from one stage to another, but the revenue impact that comes from this single stage. Or we focus on transitioning probabilities or non-transitioning probabilities. For example, we want to push a customer from being a visitor to a first-time buyer, and ideally to a repeat buyer, but we want to reduce the probability that your customers move, for example, from a repeat buyer to a gun buyer. And what could you do there? So this perspective helps you. So you start with what kind of customer behavior drives your financials the most, and customer journeys and life cycle stages are helpful. The quantification is also about customer lifetime value and what is the incremental impact, but that's a bit too deep. But you have an understanding, this customer behavior is more important than the other. And this is what you take. Take your customer target behavior. So how do we trigger additional revenue growth? We know what customers should do or shouldn't do. And what is the most profitable customer behavior that we can see? And here, I recommend a 6-stage process. And by the way, this example is from a real-life case. It was a online drugstore. So first, you define your target customer behavior, and you figure out, okay, it happens in the stage on the either for repeat buyers, and if you look at customer lifecycle stages, or you look into customer journeys, it happens on the detail page. So there are a couple of customer behaviors that could drive growth. Buy a larger pack size, choose a more expensive product, so you go rather to the recommended products and end up with a more expensive product, or you buy more add-on products. So, and in this case, okay, we figured out buying a larger pack size might be the best idea. It has revenue implications and profitability implications because you have less shipments, but that's a different story. Okay, you decide we need to buy a larger, they need to buy a larger pack size. So then you move on to where the psychology happens. Okay, how do we make this happen? And there are different effects that might trigger buying a larger pack size. You can work with social proof and how this looks like. We look into a bit social proof. So saying something like other customers bought this number of units. You have anchoring effects. So you show them a high number and they fixate on this and they buy a larger pack size. You make savings of buying larger pack sizes more salient. You change the choice architecture about the options they have, and so on. So you have some ideas about the theoretical background why customers choose a specific pack size and how you could change it. So, for example, if you decide to test and to test social proof and to implement social proof, you design something I would call a triggering treatment. So you want to trigger a behavior, and you choose a treatment. The terminology is borrowed from experiments. So it's a treatment, and what they do before is the control, and then you see what is the impact of this treatment on triggering this behavior. And you think, okay, we have a couple of different treatments that we could test. We can have a banner that shows our customers usually buy, 20, 25, 100 units. Or you can show a higher anchor and you order the pack sizes in descending order. So you have the largest pack size first. Or you have, if you look into detail pages and you have these little tiles, you could put a message on there. You save X euros if you buy a higher pack size than the smallest one. Or if you have 7 different pack sizes and it is either too difficult for customers to choose the right one and they end up with choosing the middle option. If you remove 2 pack sizes strategically, you and customers still choose the middle option, you can change the median value out of your in your choice architecture, and by using this compromise or middle option effect, customers buy more. In our experiment, we decided, okay, let's change the order of pack sizes. And now you need to collect data. Either you have already data in your database because you did this kind of change in the past and you have data about customers who were exposed to a certain treatment and those who are not. And then you need to do some cleaning here. It's about removing selection biases in quasi-experimental studies. But most likely you run an experiment to collect the data. And you have here different options how you can do it. You can split your traffic randomly. So one customer sees the ascending order, the other one the descending order. So it means 2 customers at the same time see different things. If this is not such a good idea, you think you could do another treatment. You just flip treatment and control in very short intervals to account for other factors that might trigger this effect. So let's say you flip it every 20 minutes, ascending order, descending order, ascending order, descending order. At the same time, 2 customers at the same time would see the same treatment. So, or you run, as I said, quasi-experimental designs. So you have data on customers seeing 2 different treatments, but not randomly. So they self-select to a specific treatment, and you need to get rid of this self-selection bias. That's something you could do as well. So in this case, we decided for a randomized traffic split. So then you have your data. What do you do with the data? You want to estimate whether there's a statistical significant difference, and you hope that the difference is of a managerially relevant magnitude. So the difference is large. So you also look at the size of the effect. And you can do it with simple group comparisons. And what we did here, you can clean out trends with difference and difference estimations, or use propensity score matching, or creating synthetic twins to do these quasi-experimental studies. So in our case, we found that the average pack size increased by 16%, but we didn't find stockpile effect. So the number of units so the number of orders were the same, and the number of units were also 16% more over the last 12 months. So the number of transactions did not drop. So, okay, you have your experiment. for a limited set of items. What you do now is you want to extrapolate the effect of your experiment to a contribution to growth for the whole company. So what you do, you extrapolate the effect for the limited set of items to the full set of eligible items. Let's say you have 10,000 items that could benefit from this treatment, but you just ran an experiment on 100, so you extrapolate it to these 10,000. But your experiment ran only for a week or two. So you extrapolate also the effect for the 1 or 2 experimental weeks to a full year. And if you do this, you have your annualized contribution to growth. So to wrap it up and to answer the question on how to plant more growth seeds. First, you look at your garden of customers and you analyze your either micro relationships or macro relationships or both. And you find, okay, this is the best behavior to focus on to create growth. Then you take this kind of target behavior into the next step and think about, okay, how do we trigger this behavior that we want to see? And here we go through 6 systematic stages. We have our customer behavior. We create hypotheses on what might work. We operationalize what might work into a real triggering treatment. So what do we post, for example, on the detail page or in the customer experience? We run the experiment, perform our tests, and turn this kind of trigger into an annualized impact to growth. And that's how I would do it. Thank you so much for your attention and your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Markus, thank you. I mean, if you say that this is how I would do, we should all think that that's the right way to do. That's what I honestly believe. Like Khan, I rightfully said that's what I called masterclass, and I absolutely agree. So I think during your presentation, Markus, you mentioned something about like grouping customers and then actually these, thinking about pricing. I mean, Amy along the lines asked the question just you were actually while speaking, so I didn't want to interrupt obviously and left that for Q&A. So the question is, as I know, grouping customers is a part of personalized pricing strategy, so a major keyword there. So isn't it? So she's basically asking about, your maybe thoughts and maybe elaboration on personalized pricing strategy.
How personalized pricing fits into this, or what is my general?
I think that's the question, because she asked this during your presentation. So you mentioned something like grouping customers, segmenting them, etc. So does it sort of also mean making personalized pricing? I think that's what she thought, at least.
Yes. The key assumption about personalized pricing is keep it fair. So, and keep it fair means if somebody has a benefit, the other one has no benefit at all, that's unfair. But if you give some group benefits and the other group also benefits, but they are not the same, they have mixed benefits and non-benefits, but overall it's fair. So, for example, if you want to keep your we have different mechanisms that you can play. For example, if you have repeat buyers and you offer them kind of loyalty discount. For example, your every year they stay with you. For example, they get 1% discount until a certain point. Let's say after 5 years they have 5% off. So, and this appears to be fair because these customers have to put in some work first. So, and that's easy to explain to, for example, a new customer who say, okay, they pay 5% less. That's unfair. No, that's not unfair because they understand why they don't get it. So then if you figure out, okay, you have these opportunistic buyers, they go to Idealo, figure out what's the best Black Friday deal, and all of a sudden they end up at your website, they have no ties with you. You could, to turn them into regular buyers, you need to find something, for example, a promotion that brings them back. Maybe it's not so good anymore as the Black Friday deal, but you send them based on their purchase history. So they bought something, and you know this item also bought others, and you can calculate the propensity and the propensity to buy something similar or something else. And you make a personalized promotion. So you send them 30 items at a specific price, although they are not on a website. So they get a personalized promotion, and technically it's either a personalized coupon, or if you can do it with your ERP or catalog system, they actually have an individualized price. And they conclude that others don't, that others might have a different promotion. So even as a recipient of a promotion, you don't feel it unfair because you have something others don't. And others either receive a different promotion or just don't know that others have a promotion. So you can personalize pricing with different vehicles. What you should not do is hardcore personalization based on cookies, like in the airline industry. If you press F5 or go in with a private window, you see a different price. That's completely uncool. But you can do different kind of pricing tactics and mechanisms that price differentiate depending on, for example, the life cycle stage.
Yeah.
And for customer journeys, you don't have this, right? Only if you group it. But for example, the discount on to make the quantity discount more salient, of course, it's a treatment that works for all. So,
okay, great. Well, we have quite a few questions, Markus, which is a great thing, and which shows that your let's say aim is succeeded. So in the beginning, you sort of wanted people to think, and speculate about two major things, and I think you achieved that. Congrats for that. So one question is from Greg. So firstly, thank you, Dr. Markus. And I have a question. He says, how do you best decide what stage of the customer journey to optimize if you can't readily identify a weak point? So like without any data in hand, so where would you start first is the question.
The worst mistake would be not starting at all. So I would start with an intelligent guess and say, okay, the most important part here is my most frequent buyers are, by my working assumption is they are the most valuable ones. And let's do something to reduce the churn rate. And then you do this first. And then you figure out either it has no impact because it's already low, or it has any impact, okay, and say, okay, now I have at least a benchmark. Focusing on churn rate delivers annualized, let's say, 500K revenue. So what else can we do? Oh, we have already reduced the churn rate. Let's get more into this repeat buyers bucket. Okay, who are they? Let's say the sporadic buyers, they buy 3 times a year. That's more than nobody. Let's start with them. Okay, and then you work yourself through this from optimization stage to optimization stage. Does this make sense somehow?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Actually, I will have maybe only time for one additional question, Markus. But if you will, be online, like in the chat section, I mean, maybe if you go through the questions in the chat box after your session, you can still, answer them in a written way. So I will ask one last question, but you still have a few other questions unanswered, unfortunately, because we really try to stick to the agenda. But like, if you would have any spare time after your presentation, feel free to answer them. So I think in sequence, we have Nuri's question. And it was actually, I think, about the part where you actually talked about personalized pricing again in your answer. So the question is, what do you suggest for doing A/B testing when showing different prices, I mean, even different promos, basically, to different people are not legally allowed, as in many countries, and especially in e-commerce. So how do you maybe overcome them? Can you find workarounds, etc.?
Yes, there are 2 ways how you could do it. You could either do this flipping, like randomly, you just divide the whole day of 24 hours into 20-minute segments, and you randomize across these 72 segments, and then you just flip it. What else could you do? So you have at the same time the same experience. Or what you could also do is you identify closely related items, and you change, and you take one set as a control and the other one as a treatment. And depending on how they differently behave, you conclude this is just due to the treatment. So you find control and treatment items, and then you change it for the whole time, not flipping, but changing for the whole time. These are the two strategies I would recommend.
Yeah, great and very practical one. So Markus, once again, as I just said in the beginning, thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for the great material, as always, as expected from you. So for the listeners, I would also like to mention, like Markus recently restarted Pricing Nuggets content on LinkedIn. So I'm a big fan of those because I also try to create content about pricing. So I really try to like and share all other contents created by people like Markus. So feel free to find him on LinkedIn, try to connect, try to follow, and those pricing nuggets are really tasty, I must admit. So feel free to enjoy them. But Markus, once again, thanks a lot for sharing the stage with us, and thanks for taking part in the very first World Pricing Day, as we will tell to our children, grandchildren years later. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much.
Okay, stay safe. Ciao, ciao. Bye. So now we will have Laura joining in, I think in just a few minutes, if she is ready. Looking at my colleagues to bring her in. Waiting for her. As soon as I see her face on my screen, I think it means that she's good to go. Well, maybe in the meantime, I might repeat the quiz part like a promo material. I mean, that's basically a gift for you, but still, I would like to repeat that part. So as I said in my keynote, our team will send you the live attendees only. If you obviously approved further communications, because in these webinar stuff, when you sign up with your email, we also ask for a further permission, communication permission. So if you approve that part and if you attended the event live, you will receive an email from our marketing team where you will actually have a few questions about today's content, about actually pricing in general. And if you actually respond them right, I mean, if you actually win the quiz, if you actually succeed in the quiz, you will have 3 great books. One of them is from Markus, and voila, here we have Laura. How are you, Laura?
I'm very well. Hi there.
Hi. Once again, to repeat, thanks a lot for taking part in this very first World Pricing Day one with us. So I am very happy to kind of convince you, I would say, to share the stage with us, because I would also like to thank Joe for your participation, because he recommended and introduced you to me to take the stage, share the stage with us. Thanks a lot. So how are you doing? How is everything?
Very well on a Friday. So and thank you very much for having me, and fantastic to hear the tail end of Markus's presentation as well. Absolutely relevant for the market that we're in at the moment. So brilliant. So I've got a couple of slides to share with you guys, a few things that I kind of wanted to talk about. But really, I mean, when we spoke, I think we were trying to talk really around how we see pricing in a holistic sense. So. What is it impacting outside of just the price? So a lot of people say to me, I want to increase my prices. We've got inflationary price pressure. And my immediate question is, well, what's your brand permission? What's your value proposition in the marketplace? What do you think your customers would go to? Where would be the alternative competition? And so actually really starting to help our clients think about how they make changes to prices, but also how that's having impacts on loads of other functions in the business, and how they start having what we term single customer conversations. So I'm going to talk about that loads today, if that sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely great. So I will be leaving the stage to you. So feel free to share your screen. Feel free to walk us through your presentation, Laura.
Fantastic. All right, amazing. Well, let me do that. First of all, I think it's always nice to have an introduction about who I am as a new face. So very lovely to be here. My name's Laura Higgins. I work for Parthenon, and I've been a consultant pretty much most of my career. So I've spent all of the time really doing everything around customer commercial strategy type work, and specialize with clients in all range of sectors. So it could be food, it could be biscuits, it could be cars, it could be insurance, it could be robots, it could be satellites. I've sort of priced and worked with go-to-market strategies in a range of industries, and it's something that I get very excited about. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today around how I spend time with my clients. So I'm going to try and figure out how I share my screen very quickly. So let me see if I can just do this. So you can see some of the content that I wanted to share with you guys. Here we go. Right. I might need a quick nod to say that's come up.
loading. Yeah, we have it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fantastic. So, yeah, I wanted to spend a little bit of time with you today just to talk a bit broader and to talk more around commercial strategy. So before I do that, I thought I would set the scene in terms of what are we speak to our clients all the time, and we're constantly talking to them, constantly advising them, and very much have an amazing relationship where we're doing lots of listening, we're getting lots of advice, but they're also feeding back about how things are responding with their customers and their clients in the marketplace. So I wanted to talk to you about some kind of key themes that are coming up at the moment and why pricing, inflation, profitability, all of those elements at the moment is a real critical topic, and actually where we're seeing things work really well, and where we see a few pitfalls, where we see clients making a couple of mistakes. So a couple of themes here, hopefully nothing massively new for many of you on the call today, but obviously we're in a period of uncertainty. Yeah, we talk about trilemmas, which is these inflationary pressures that are coming through from increased cost of labor. We've got overarching inflation and restricted supply. So we've got this real trilemma of happening through us. And so a lot of people are doing things around price, but actually there's a lot to be said around what you can do around profitability leakage. So profitability leakage for me is anything where you've set the price, but it's not necessarily executed or delivered, and there's been some loss in that going through. So lots to sort of talk about there. Big theme for our clients in terms of how we're helping them address in that space. The second goes without saying is technology change, but sometimes we should look at this in a different way. Not only is technology shifting the way that we need to respond, the new channels, how we need to respond and change our models for that, but also we've got a massive shortness of talent. By having technology, it's a real advantage to be able to respond to that. So if we're not talking about how we can digitally enable a lot of our commercial strategies, we're probably leaving money on the table. So big theme for us at the moment.
Laura, so sorry to interrupt, but if you are actually like going through the slides, we're only seeing slide 1, but if that was not the case, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I felt that you were actually proceeding with slides, because now we only see slide 1. Indeed. Yeah, now okay. It works. Yeah, now we are on slide 2, just for you to know.
You're on 2. Okay, fantastic. All right, good. Let me just do a quick test. Have we gone to 3 and then back to 2?
We didn't go to 3. We are still on 2.
Okay. All right. We might have to just manually just shut it down every time. That's fine. Not a problem at all. Okay, so I've spoken through the first 2. So we've got the focus on profitability. We've got the focus on digital, and the third is an increasing topic. And we've heard lots of people talk about the importance of sustainability, of inclusion, diversity. But actually, when we think about growth strategies, it's around purpose. And so a lot of the conversations we have with our clients is, what brand permission do you have to play? And therefore, what flex and stretch have you got in terms of value proposition, the product, and also the price of how you can go to market? So this is another really key theme. The fourth is this is for me, this is insight and translating insight into value. So not just having data for data's sake, but doing something with it. Consumers are changing at a rapid pace, and the consumer demands are really dictating how a lot of businesses are going to market. So unless we've got an ear to the ground and really having that deep understanding and future predicting what's coming, we're going to be left behind. And the last theme I wanted to talk about was really actually disruption, and a really good example of disruption is some great examples at the moment of sector divergence, where you've got travel firms becoming finance firms, and you've got lots of different shifting changes here, but this sector convergence with new players coming in at all times, we really need to be able to help think about where should we be funding that future growth. And some of you might be asking, okay, these are interesting themes, but what does this mean in terms of our overall commercial strategy? Well, actually, it's critically important, because these are all the things that are really going to help us forecast where we think our products, our value proposition, and our prices need to be in the future. And shifting away from being historically pricing focused to looking at the future is going to be key to success. And getting some of these things right will make better informed decisions and improve the stickiness of prices in the market as well. Okay, so I'm gonna do this manually. So hopefully this is still working, and we're on 3 now. Speak if it hasn't jumped, but otherwise I'm going to keep going. Okay, great. Okay, so when we talk about the wider concept, when we talk about customer strategy, what are the key kind of themes and components part of that? So of course, pricing and profitability are a deep part of that, and then there's some things that under there that I'm sure you've been speaking about today, from segmentation into dynamic pricing. But there's lots of other impacts that really can be indirectly impacted or even directly impacted by those decisions that you need to make. Now, sales and commercial is an obvious one. You know, obviously, if you're setting prices, somebody's got to go and execute it in the market, and that's typically a sales function. So that kind of throws through. Marketing and brand, you could argue that, of course, you know, we're going to make sure that we're marketing effectively, we're promoting it effectively, and therefore the price position has got to match that. When we start thinking about brand strategy, actually, I typically find, you know, a lot of people aren't thinking about price, value proposition, and brand collectively together. These are very siloed departments in a lot of our clients' businesses. So we're trying to help them sort of smooth that over. Digital and innovation growth, that's another, you know, huge key topic at the moment. If you're not innovating, if you're not disrupting, if you're not thinking outside the box from your core base of product and price of what's in the market, then you could be really disrupted and impacted by other people. And finally, the thing that feeds all of us, you know, is getting that insight and that foresight to make really informed decisions. So for me, this is the wider customer strategy. And when anybody wants to talk to me about pricing, the first thing I say is, okay, that's fantastic, but let's just impact and have a conversation about how it's going to impact the other areas of your business. And can we get those key stakeholders on board so we can really understand what this looks like in terms of decision making? So wanted to set the scene for that a little bit in terms of when we say customer, what does that mean? So while I've done that, the next thing I wanted to do was go into a little bit of detail about what we mean when we talk about price. And for a lot of people, price is simply, you know, the price of the ticket price of the goods being sold. And there's a huge amount of focus, therefore, in what that price should be. So you could argue in the top of the circles, it would be price setting. And of course, that's massively, massively important and needs to be done in the right way. And no doubt you guys have spoken about that lots today. But typically I find about 80% of the focus is always in that box, and about 20% is split within the other two. And that's fundamentally where we're seeing especially a lot of this leakage occur, because actually it's critical that equal impact is given to both the price execution and also that overarching governance model. And so if I just break that down a little bit, you know, when I say price execution, this is actually the piece about it, right? You've set your price, but how are you getting that to a customer? How is that continually being evaluated? What commercial terms are impacting that? What does that contract look like if it's over a longer period of time? And really, you know, do our sales force understand the key messages and why those things are so important? And in terms of the won versus delivered, are we really managing our cost to serving that customer as well? So we're not giving margin away through poor service and performance, even though we had good price setting at the front end. And then the last bit is around the governance. So, you know, we often talk about carrots and sticks in these environments, but, you know, this is, of course, having that stick in terms of have we got the right KPIs and the metrics we're managing and making sure each of these things are happening. But it's also the carrot. It's incentivizing people to make the right informed decisions. It's making it very clear to everybody in the business, these are the products we're trying to push this month. This is the stuff that we're targeting. These are the promotions we're running, and really establishing that with our clients as well. For the first time ever, I've probably helped our clients do more open book deals this year than I've ever done before. And actually that open, honest conversation about what the environment is having on their business and therefore what they need to change is completely huge. So getting these three elements considered in any price decision is really key. Okay.
Laura, one comment is actually written from Mohammed. So if you can maybe maximize the slides, like by presenting it, if that would be possible, I think we will see it better. But I mean, no big deal if you can't.
I'm not familiar with your tooling at all, so I can't see.
I mean, you already got the flow, so I really didn't want to interrupt, but yeah, please go ahead. No problem.
Sorry about that. Is it good enough to read at least?
Yeah, it's actually good enough. It requires a little effort from the actually attendees, but I mean, maybe it's keeping them awake, so that's totally fine. Yeah, just demand more attention is maybe sometimes better. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. Oh, well, hopefully I'm spending enough time explaining it that the words are good enough.
Absolutely, no worries.
Okay, so now we've kind of got these three key kind of elements of pricing, and when we term that in that setting, that execution and the governance, what that kind of looks like. I just wanted to spend a little bit of a moment on some sort of really basic but key principles of how to get these things right. So I've talked a lot about the first one, which is collaboration. You know, you've got to be having conversations with your marketing, your value proposition, your branding teams, because this is an ecosystem and you've only got one customer, and actually considering it with that that single customer mindset is massively important. We're seeing our clients themselves, remove traditional functions of sales, marketing, and service, and it's for a very, very good reason. They've realized there's one customer, and a single view of the customer is massively helpful. So getting that collaboration up front is really important. The second, the comment is always a good one to put in a pricing group, but smart doesn't have to be complicated. I remember somebody said to me once, they described themselves as pricing as rocket scientists. And I said, well, that's fantastic, but if nobody understands how you've got there, how is your sales team and your customers going to be able to respond to that? So being able to do really cool dynamic pricing, but that can be explained to people is really actually a key part of getting this right. And then the last is around actionable outcomes. And this is, for me, this is around making sure that sales team really understand the decisions that were made and as to why. Some of the best adherence we get to terms, where we're really trying to reduce discount spreads, is actually spending a good amount of time doing some sales training and showing them the difference between the different gradings of margin, and also showing them what happens when you apply 1 to 2% above and beyond discount rates, and how that massively increases spread over time. So, big thing there around trying to get our sales teams to be outcome-led, and also just understanding it as well. So for me, those are kind of 3 key principles. Must get right is a good way of thinking about it. And actually, the next slide I wanted to show you was the must not get wrong is a good way of thinking about this. For me, these are really big pitfalls around anything to do with a commercial strategy. So the first is something I see time and time again. So we call it double hit, but actually it can be multi-hit, where you've got a flat price increase. You maybe have tightened up your belts on some of the customer service offerings that are out there. You've tightened up commercial terms. Payment terms have been a little bit restricted. There's additional charges for additional surcharges and add-ons. All of these things are very good strategies, but when you think of a single customer and all of those things coming at once, suddenly with potentially a slightly weakened value proposition with limited service and increase in all of these different commercial value levers, customers are going to feel really quite commercially attacked. And where we see price increases stick is where they've been really thought through, and every single customer has been considered and considered from multiple different lenses of decision making that's changing to their overall package, price, product, and promotion. So really thinking of that sort of multitude of impact is key. Strategic segmentation. This could also be called an outcome-led segmentation. A lot of people do segmentations for segmentation's sake, because then I see loads of gold, silver, bronze. It's based on revenue and maybe a few other sort of fancy metrics. Actually, very few segmentations I look at are very growth focused. They're not necessarily thinking about what are the clients that we want to partner with, who are the clients who we believe are growing, who are the clients who we will buy a range of our services, potentially value add services. And therefore, where do we want our salespeople and our account managers spending their time? And actually really starting to think about segmentation with a coverage model is a really handy way to ensure that actually it's not only around who customers are, how we're going to classify them, what that service model could be, but also commercially who's growing and where we would want to invest our time with going forward. So again, becoming much more outcome, much more future-led in terms of the thinking. Data quality, I'm hoping a few of you smiled when you saw this on the slide. It really goes without saying, there's big multi-billion-dollar organizations out there that still have huge challenges with their data quality. They haven't allocated cost efficiency. They can't align their commercial data back to a P&L. It's going to frustrate the entire process. So, getting this stuff right is the ABC, really. The fourth is around the deal cycle. I talk a little bit about this later, but really starting to understand that price is not just something that's done at the beginning, and once a deal's done, it's put to bed. There's loads and loads of things that we see in a range of industries. We call it won versus delivered, where there's a price put down on a piece of paper, and even though the client might pay that due to late paying or due to excessive service or licensing or whatever it is, you're eroding that margin through that cycle, and not to mention not thinking about what the next deal is going to be in the year going through. So another area that needs maintained focus and something we would hold our account managers typically responsible to, and normally they aren't incentivized or motivated or even aware that that's something that's part of their overall job. And the last is deal negotiation. I mentioned earlier about I've seen more open book prices, but actually being able to justify longer changes of prices, being able to forecast that, reduce quote cycles. There's lots you can do in this space. But one of the things I would say is when you are doing that, being very aware that if prices are going up, they don't look like they're about to go down in 6 months, because they're going to be having a very reverse conversation with your client. So just being quite tactical and about thinking about what the impact is going forward. So for me, these are sort of things that you can, absolutely, when we get them right, we see fantastic improvement for our clients. But when they go wrong, they really go wrong. And these are typical things that I see with some of our clients going through. And I get a lot of this back actually from speaking to customers. The data tells me a lot, but from speaking to customers, this is where you really find out things have gone horribly wrong. Okay, how am I doing on time? I think I'm still okay. I just wanted to, I've talked a lot about how price is wider than just the price setting. And so apologies, this slide is very busy. And I imagine if it's small, it's going to feel like really impossible. But really what this is showing you is a sales cycle, or some people would like to refer to it as a customer journey. But really what I wanted to do is just identify how many points there are in the life cycle of a customer where you can do something to impact commercial value for your clients and your customers. So it could be right up front in terms of what your brand USP is, how you lead generation, how you're segmenting, how you're targeting, but it could be stuff midway through those contracts like I've talked about. It could be a way you upsell, cross-sell. Typically that's massively fragmented. You get different departments looking after different products and different brands, and so much money is left on the table there. And all the way through into billings and collections and that renegotiation part. So loads and loads of opportunities to drive further commercial value in the organization. And again, just trying to reiterate the point of why you've got to think about pricing in a much wider and more holistic way than just that initial upfront list price. Okay, and then I'm going to end on this final slide. So this is a question we get asked a lot, which is, okay, you go and do these pricing programs or diagnostics for clients. Where do you typically find the value? And a few of these I've mentioned already, but I'll just like list them out really quickly. So one, discount spread is massive. Loads of people think that they've got quite really rigorous discount and authority limits on how to do things, but actually when you actually play it out, you allocate cost and you show it back, I find huge discount spread here, and this is a big part of the leakage that we see for a lot of our clients. The second is around the execution. So I referred here to a price control tower, but some form of like price control group who are looking at this on a regular basis. This is not the same group who are doing the setting. This is people who are monitoring and controlling, and that the rules and the policy around what prices and commercial terms should be massively clear, with the right authority levels for people to work through, but also the ability for people to get approval when things aren't typical and they need to make exceptions. But that should also be extremely clear and robust. Revenue from commercial terms, I have found millions and millions and millions of dollars in late payment fees, in not recovering pallets correctly, in not charging for surcharges. It's absolutely huge. So not having really clear commercial terms and enforcing them, again, huge opportunity there as well. Sales coverage. For me, thinking around sales coverage in terms of how you optimize their time, how do you optimize that coverage model of the market, not just existing customers. We've got to think of the very nature of what we want sales teams to do. They are not a service function. They are a sales function. They are the people who are pushing your products. They are having those price increase conversations. They are also trying to sell and upsell and cross-sell and do different things and look after the account generally. So really making sure those guys are where they need to be, and not just with the accounts they've always been with, or the large accounts that are core and stable but not really growing. So spending a bit of time thinking about that correctly is great. And then finally, incentives. Actually, really done loads and loads and loads of research into sales incentives. Actually, money doesn't make the world go round. It is not the only thing that's important to salespeople's behavior. As I've mentioned before, training and education on pricing is massive. Having the right performance incentives is really important, but also making them feel that any incentive, any bonus has a direct correlation with the work that they do is really critical. A lot of people feel very disassociated, and that will reduce the impact anything can have. So for me, if I was going to go and say quick wins or quick to medium for many of my clients, this is where we would often go and find the money in the short term. So I think I'm slightly over, so apologies about that, but hopefully that was helpful. Apologies about the slides. I'm gonna stop sharing because I now can't see.
Well,
take
thanks a lot, Laura.
questions.
To the attendees, I frankly didn't want to interrupt you as we caught you like today, as you spared your time. I felt that, a 5-minute extra would be worthwhile to, postpone the rest of the agenda. But you thanks to you, finish this. Maybe to maybe have a few questions. So if people have any questions, they can drop this down, and right away we have one from Amy. So do I really need to execute holistic commercial excellence? I mean, I think it's a great perspective because I have a small business on Shopify. I mean, a small business is asking this maybe corporate-ish question.
So I would say, I think it's a great question. I mean, I would say, it depends how you define small. And it also depends how complicated it is. For me, the more products you have and the more customers you have is the first question you need to ask yourself. And as that business expands, I'm imagining you'd like that to expand. As that expands, that's where you would want to start putting more rigor and control around things. When businesses are fairly straightforward and fairly simple, actually it's far easier to manage. So most of the clients that come to us have either got one range of problem or a multitude. It's either they've got over 10,000 SKUs and massive ranges of that, or over 1,000 customers and that they have to serve in a multitude of ways with 5 sales guys. So it kind of depends on your complexity would be the answer to my question.
Yeah, well, maybe to add on that, I think the whole idea of today's event was actually to emphasize that, pricing matters for all sizes of companies. Because as you said, I mean, even if you are small, you are maybe dealing with the same complexity of a business flow. So you are trying to grow, as you said. So why not implement this, let's say, holistic commercial, at least why not try to implement this in day one? Because when you come to that point, it will end up as a friction unless you do it today. So maybe just, paving the way from day one makes absolute sense. I mean, this is also what we hear from, some of our leads, customers, etc. Because, they come to us and say, well, I'm a small business. Should I also automate my pricing? I mean, I'm telling them that if you already, felt the urge of discussing this with me, there must be a pain. So you should really do something about that. And, why not doing this now instead of waiting?
I mean, look, the most obvious one is errors, right? Invoice errors and from the price that was set, and the other things. I think having something written down where it's a clear policy and a clear way to be able to get a price into an invoice. Normally, that's a very manual process. That's where you see major errors. So when you start seeing that stuff come through, then 100%.
Yep. Cool. We have a comment saying another great session. Thanks to you, Laura. So I will just wait for a couple of seconds or maybe a minute to see whether there are any questions. But in the meantime, maybe before we will just skip to the other presentation to take time. I really thank you for taking part. I mean, again, giving the audience the opportunity to listen to you, listen to the material that you went through. And by the way, just for you to know, I mean, we managed to read whatever you just showed. So it was just only difficult. So don't think that we didn't read anything at all or something, but it was just maybe 10% smaller because you had this step. So don't feel bad about that. So it was absolutely great. Clear. Thanks.
IT continues to be my friend. Lucky I didn't come on and say I was an IT specialist. So I would have lost something.
No problem. So
amazing. Okay, well, lovely to speak to you. All the best.
We have one more, maybe. Comments. So Mohammed is saying, great session. Thank you again. So I guess it would be wise to wrap things up. So once again, thanks a lot for your time. And again, just to repeat myself, thanks a lot for taking part in the very first World Pricing Day event. Hopefully, we would love to, collaborate with you in the coming years. But while I'm saying this, I think we have a question that might actually take only a minute or 2 minutes to answer, which will still keep us in the agenda. It is the profit from holistic commercial excellence guaranteed? I mean, well, you shared it, so you should answer this, Laura.
I can't tell you how many times I've been asked that question. Okay. Like all things, no, it's not. I would say my biggest lesson and the thing I talk to the clients about a lot is the more that you're able to do, the more you're able to really make sure that you've thought about the different impacts, you've thought about the different ways it's going through, the chances are something's going to land. I mean, there's nothing worse than doing a flat price increase because you're basically going to lose 5 to 8% market share in pretty much most circumstances, depending on the level of the price increase. So, absolutely not. But I would say, fix your data, have a really clear policy, train out your salespeople, talk to the rest of the departments in your business around what you're doing around price. Chances are, if you've done all of those things, you're probably going to have the least amount of leakage and the least amount of customer churn that I would see. And the most mature businesses are the people who've got really good rigor around that process.
Yeah. One comment we have is only trying would guarantee that. So like without even executing it, only trying might have.
Yeah, I love that.
One more question, if you don't mind. I think that would also fit into 1 minute that we have. So
Sure.
It is like, again, obviously thank you, Laura. Will you please describe the characteristics of an organization that is well suited to begin a holistic commercial experience change? So something that we probably answered in a small business context, but maybe an ideal description would make sense.
I think people who really understand the impact that pricing can have. And one of the things that we do see at the moment is huge amounts of increase of chief pricing officers.
Yeah.
10 years ago, the most senior person in most businesses was a pricing manager who had 5 lines of report before they even got to a board member. So making sure that pricing is a board level conversation or a senior leader conversation is really, really key.
Mm-hmm.
Just like brand, it is a massive, significant lever of your business and shouldn't be left to somebody who's not thinking about the overarching strategy of the firm to make informed decisions. So that would be my guidance.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And that's the whole idea that I tried to emphasize in the very beginning. I mean, I really feel that pricing is unfortunately neglected in the corporate landscape. So it's mostly like, I don't know, just delegated to someone junior. I'm saying mostly, not in every organization, obviously, but that's what we are sort of trying to change, at least by changing the mindset of all the listeners, of all the people that would maybe encounter with this content. But again, I think it's time to wrap things up, Laura. Thanks again for taking part.
Lovely.
Pleasure to listen to you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much. Cheers, guys.
Yeah. Okay. Now, like a colleague of mine from Pricing team will be actually joining in to talk about basically the details of e-commerce pricing, e-commerce strategies, etc. So, like Sanda is about to join in, I guess. I'm again checking my screen to make sure that she is in. Just to remind the live attendees once again that we will be sending a quiz material to you, like after the event, so that like anyone who responds to those questions in a correct way will get 3 great books. One written by Dr. Markus, one of our like previous speakers. So I'm sure that you will benefit a lot from those 3 books, mainly on pricing. So feel free to actually check out this email that we will send to you, and then just check out these 10, maybe 11 questions, I guess. So Sanda, voila, how are you?
Hello everyone.
How are you doing, Sanda?
I'm great, thanks Burc. Thanks everyone for joining us on this very special day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks a lot for being part of it. So like I will not actually take further time from your presentation, so feel free to share your screen, walk us through whatever you have prepared. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Sure. 1 second, please. Need to set up the sharing.
No worries.
Entire screen. I'll go for the entire screen share.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. 1 second.
Yeah, you can always get help, Sanda. No problem. Like we can. I mean, that's that. I already apologized on behalf of all of us in advance. So I think we are running an absolutely seamless event. So no worries at all about that. So voila, we see your screen. Okay, so you can go ahead.
I can go ahead. Let me turn on my camera again. So let me say hello again to everyone, and thanks for waiting a bit. So today is the World Pricing Day. We're going to talk about I'm going to talk about the most common and primary e-commerce pricing strategies. So when setting prices, e-commerce business owners, they employ a variety of strategies. They take production cost, the lifetime value of the customers, and the revenue goals into account to reach to its target customers. So the crucial task here is to actually find and apply the right pricing strategy for your type of product and your type of business. Let me also just introduce myself quickly. I'm Sanda Macic, and I'm an experienced sales and marketing specialist with a background in engineering. For the past 15 years, I've been helping various industries and and businesses with their market research and pricing strategies for their new and existing products. So now it is my responsibility to generate pricings, America's operations, and help e-commerce retailers make more profitable pricing decisions. So as I said, today we're going to go through some most common pricing strategies. Before we dive into different pricing strategies, I would first like to talk a bit about consumer behavior. So what is it that actually drives the purchasing decisions of different types of buyers out there? I want to start with actually a personal example of me and my husband, that we're kind of like completely opposite type of buyers. And me, I would say I'm an impulsive buyer. So I just go out, I see the product. If I like it, and if I think that it's, the quality is okay, and it's priced fairly, I'm just going to go for it and I'm going to buy it without really questioning, if I need it or not. But I will kind of make my decision immediately. On the other hand, I have my husband that if he needs a product, he will start to search, to look for it. He will try to find, as he called it, like the optimum ratio. He will try to find the best product with the best price and the best quality. So it could potentially take sometimes hours. He will start the search on Amazon and all the other marketplaces, websites. He will even go to physical stores, check all the reviews until he makes a decision, and it could really take months. So if we take a look here at a Google's consumer barometer, it shows actually how much time is spent on a product before a purchasing decision is made. So we can see here that only 21% start the research moments just moments before a purchase. So that would be me, obviously. All the rest start from hours to more than months before making a purchasing decision. So that would be my husband, obviously. So here's some statistics to see just how e-commerce is actually shaped by different customer habits and improving technology. So the most important store features driving the purchasing decision, like 80% of them, is competitive pricing. Around 90% of e-commerce shoppers are masters of hunting deals. Thanks to different comparison shopping engines, people tend to actually search for the best price and kind of wait for discounts to happen to actually purchase the product. So these price comparison engines actually constitute around 20% of e-commerce traffic for all sorts of products, right? So we need to know now that we have buyers that are very well informed, like they're much more educated than before. They have access to all the information. They can check the prices. They can go to physical stores. They can check product reviews. So we really need to consider that when setting up prices of our own products in our e-commerce businesses. So let's now start talking about different pricing strategies. I would like to start with the most basic one, I would say. It's a cost-based pricing. The crucial task within this strategy is to come up with the right profit margin that will obviously maximize your profits without actually scaring off your customers. So e-commerce businesses, they need to take into account different types of costs that they have on their end. So it's not only material, labor, and overhead costs. We're not talking about production, but e-commerce businesses, they also have other costs, such as marketing costs, the website maintenance costs, the platform costs, different apps, returns and refunds, etc. So they need to take all that into consideration when putting the right profit margin to actually set the price. The problem here is that there are certain risks that come with this type of strategy. You can end up pricing your products either too cheap, which will kind of undervalue your products, or you could become too expensive and start losing your competitiveness and losing the sales volumes, obviously. And I can tell why this strategy has these risks. It is because the businesses tend to ignore two major factors that play an important role in this price-demand relationship. It's first competitors' prices and consumers, their willingness to pay. So like, for example, when you're selling a product like a luxury business, like let's say we have here like a diamond example. Like if you're selling a diamond necklace, you obviously know that the buyers do not care about the low prices. So you can actually put a fat profit margin and that could still hold valid. On the other hand, if we go to consumer electronics, where there's a fierce competition out there, people are selling identical products, you cannot really be the most expensive one and expect to have high sales volumes or to remain competitive, because people will go to the next one that has a much lower price and purchase the product right there. So you must make sure that your costs are calculated in every pricing strategy you pursue, but you need to also consider your customers and also your competitors. So talking about competitors, it brings us to the market-based pricing, where online retailers, they actually cannot ignore market competition, especially in e-commerce nowadays. So as we mentioned above, consumers care heavily about the price and they tend to compare it at all times, but your competitors are doing pretty much the same. So you need to have kind of both of them, keep them in mind when you're setting up your prices. So we can take this, this example here. Like we have 3 identical products being sold at 3 different stores online. The first and the third retailer, they have higher prices. The second one has a much lower price. So just by being aware of the prices of their competitors, knowing their prices, it gives him the advantage to actually increase his price just slightly below the competitors. He will still be the cheapest one. He will remain competitive, but he will significantly increase the profits. So what we're trying to say here, like applying a competitive pricing strategy, it does not necessarily mean being the most, the cheapest one. Like you don't need to undercut your competitors by lowering your prices until your profit margins are like paper thin. It is kind of about comparing, using the data that's available out there and making the best possible price decisions. So how can we actually gain this competitive edge? You can also start pursuing dynamic pricing strategy. Dynamic pricing is, I've been experiencing this one very well since the day I started working at pricing. So dynamic pricing actually, and the various repricing softwares such as Prisync, help you automatically, dynamically reprice your product based on the changes in the prices of your competitors, right? So it helps you kind of adjust your own prices immediately. So then this technology lets you test different price points through repricing rules that can help you position your business wherever you want it to be. You can set these rules on a brand level, on a category level, even on a product level. So you can literally even pursue some more personalized pricing strategies for different groups of, you can make your own collections of products, etc. And it's kind of important because we notice that a lot of websites, a lot of marketplaces, they tend to change their prices frequently. Like Amazon changes product prices 2.5 million times a day, meaning that an average product listed on Amazon basically changes its price like every 10 minutes. So before you actually think about changing your prices and following like Amazon or any other retailers out there, you need to think about setting up some specific rules to kind of understand where you want your prices to, in which direction you want them to go. So you can set up rules like I want my prices to be the cheapest in the market, or my prices should be 5% higher. I want to be $50 lower than average, and so on. You can do various types of rules, and you should start utilizing these the technology that's already out there that will help you gather the data and kind of turn it into some insightful actions actually, and help you reprice your product automatically, so you would avoid any manual workload that is kind of required if you want to manually track the prices and be informed about all these frequent changes. So it's always a good reminder that with a mix of like competitive intelligence and repricing ability, your business can always gain a competitive edge in the market. So we talked about the cost-based strategy and also considering your competitors' prices, but something that we should always keep in mind, as I said, are also our customers. So at any given moment, your business, you guys need to know the answers to these two questions. Like, who are my customers and what value do I bring to my customers? Because if everybody else is selling identical products, I need to differentiate myself. So I need to know who are my target customers, but I also need to know what I'm offering to them. So these questions will actually bring solid self-awareness to the e-commerce company. And here in this case, I would suggest to use some real-time data like purchasing history to kind of accurately identify different customer segments. After you finish segmenting your customers, you can actually learn their willingness to pay. And here you can conduct various researches on your own, or you can hire professionals. You can, get some consulting agency, etc., to try to understand and to kind of try to define different groups of customers and determine the ideal price for your target customers and for your own e-commerce store. So that's why the personalized pricing has been an increasing method in use recently. What also Markus also mentioned in his presentation. So another type of strategy that you could also consider is called product bundling. So product bundling is fairly simple, because you basically sell a range of different products together at a discounted price. So this is a real life example. Like, you can, if somebody's buying a digital camera, it's quite likely that they will be looking for some additional lenses, a tripod, or some lights, or any other accessories that might come along. So it's kind of a good approach to group them and offer them at a discounted price. And the goal would be to just increase the average order value, because customers are likely to be looking for similar things. So this is another strategy that you could consider. The next one is called penetration pricing. And this is a marketing strategy that businesses normally use when they're entering a new product market with below average prices, because the goal is to kind of lure the customers from your competitors into your own store. So businesses also use this strategy when they're highlighting a new product or a service. Like here, we could use Netflix as an example, not the Netflix of today, but the Netflix when they initially started. They actually in 2000, Netflix started offering you could rent 4 movies at a time with no return by date for like $15.95 US. It was a subscription plan. So it would come to less than $1 per DVD for regular movie watchers, while their direct competitors were actually offering just one single 3-day rental for $4.99. So with this penetration pricing and an innovative idea, obviously, it allowed Netflix to gain this competitive edge, to build its customer base, the subscriber base, and reach profitability already 5 years after opening. So if you have any great ideas, any new products, you could potentially use the penetration pricing to launch them, and then later on potentially adjust the prices. So the next one is price discrimination strategy. The price discrimination is it's an e-commerce pricing where identical products basically are being sold with different prices to different buyers. So this one works on 3 different levels. Like the first degree would be what consumers are being charged the maximum that they're willing to pay for any given product. Like example could be some auction or bidding site. The second degree is that where actually consumers can actually choose the price discrimination. For example, you can offer lower prices if they buy a product like in higher quantity. So basically, by just selecting the quantity, they can see how the price is actually being adjusted. So they can choose their own price discrimination. And the third degree is actually that products are priced differently based on different customer segments. So here you can use, again, the real-time data, some purchasing history to create different customer segments, follow up on that, and offer different prices to these different groups of clients. Another thing to consider is also your product assortment, like what type of products you offer. Does your store have any add-on products where people could kind of come back and make a supplementary purchase? So if you do have these type of products, then you could think of a loss leader pricing strategy. This strategy actually helps you set a very low price for a few products, and then that price could actually even put you to a loss. That's why it's called loss leader pricing strategy. So it would be a very low price that you could be even losing money on those products, but it's just to get the customers through the door, so they would come back and continue buying some add-ons, some accessories, some replacement parts, etc. So here, as you can see, as an example, we have this electronic toothbrush. So we can price that one very low, but we will recover the profit just by selling the replacement parts, because we're talking about oral hygiene. We know that these parts are replaced quite frequently, so you can regain the profits that were lost on pricing this main product. Another one that I was thinking is I have this lovely Pandora bracelet. I don't know if you know the brand, but just selling the bracelet itself, it can be priced very low, but they know that people will come back to their store just to purchase all these other accessories, all these little pieces of memories, right? And make their own collection. So they know that people will come back. So they're kind of recovering the profits just by selling these additional pieces. The last strategy that I want to mention is called price skimming. So price skimming is can be used when you're kind of trying to put an accent on exclusivity of the product, right? So you can actually charge the product. You can set up very high prices initially and then lower them over time. And you can use phrases such as exclusive offer, be the first one to get your hands on this product, or I don't know, limited availability, etc. Just to kind of make your clients aware that that's something exclusive that you're offering. So the best example, obviously, here is Apple. So we all know that Apple, when they're launching a new product, they're quite aware that their buyers are even willing to camp outside the store just to purchase the product first. Some of them, they're even paying months in advance just to have it in their hands first. So people like this feeling of exclusivity, right? They want to feel that they're kind of important, So you can, if you do have some exclusive, some new models that are coming in, and you're aware that your buyers are kind of willing to pay for these models, you could pursue this strategy as well. So these are just some main strategies. Obviously, there are various other strategies that you could consider for your own business. Building your own strategy, it's kind of obviously it's a tough task. There is no magic formula. Nobody can tell you, yeah, this could be the perfect one for you. So all the approaches that I actually shared here, they're not, as we say, necessarily, they're not mutually exclusive. Like you can kind of take something from each one of them and combine it into a mixed strategy. You could even apply different strategies to different groups of products or different groups of customers. It all depends on where you want to position yourself on the market. So you need to first, obviously, define your business objectives. Then obviously analyze who your customers are, what is their willingness to pay, as we said, and then try to come up with the strategy that will be unique and that will correspond the best to the needs of the product that you're selling and of your own business. And then in the end, even if you set up an ideal strategy at this moment, it still doesn't guarantee that it will be valid within a few months. So pricing, it's not a static task. You should, it's an ongoing process. Like it requires fine-tuning. You need to kind of continue optimizing it and adjusting it based on the changes on the market, based on the changes in the consumer behavior, etc. Obviously, this will all follow your e-commerce business's growth. So thank you so much for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Thanks a lot, Sanda. Thanks a lot for the great presentation. So let's wait again for a couple of minutes for a few questions. I'm sure there will be some. By the way, maybe as a little note, Sanda, like I introduced in the very beginning, is one of the like inside sales specialists from our team, basically dedicated to our North and South America sales. And she's actually not originally living in Istanbul, where we are based in, but now she is visiting us for a week. So I'm also very happy to have her as part of this World Pricing Day team alongside our marketing team. So as I already thanked everyone, Sanda, I also would like to thank you for taking part in this event as a actually contribution from our sales team.
Okay.
Well, Amy is asking for your contact details, Sanda, which is easy. So can we get your contact details? One question.
Yes.
And yeah, she also has another question.
I think it on
We will share the contact details shortly, Amy. But the question is for you, Sanda.
Okay.
Which of these strategies are most widely used in e-commerce? So which one is the one that we see as mostly applied?
Well, if I want to answer this question from my current standpoint, that I'm working for Prisync and helping a lot of e-commerce businesses. Before I was much more in a retail side of business. I would say competitive and dynamic pricing, because people are now, especially in the consumer electronics and these type of markets that are highly competitive, people are using a lot of dynamic pricing because they want to stay ahead of the competition. They want to know when the changes in the prices are happening, and they want to be able to respond to them instantly. And it's very hard to do it manually. So I have a lot of clients that are coming to us asking kind of for help, because they started to be aware that the prices are changing frequently, that there are a lot of products, there are a lot of competitors, newcomers, not only on Amazon, on Google Shopping, on different other platforms. So they kind of want to be informed of what's going on. So I would say that it's definitely the dynamic pricing from in the most recent time, that I would say.
Yeah, agreed. Well, yeah, Jochen also has a question for you, Sanda, and Jochen is actually, just for everyone to know, is our next speaker. So I think he's kind of warming up. At least that's what I get. Thanks for the question, Jochen. And Sanda, this is also a question that we mostly address in our, I would say, sales efforts, because some some companies are testing our software, and they don't have direct competition, right? So they are actually like brands selling products that only have substitutes, maybe. So like a furniture brand that has substitutes, basically. So Johan's question really puts everything into that context, and he's asking, what do you consider as an applicable strategy for own brands, for those type of companies?
Yeah, for those types of, definitely. I mean, I guess it would be a mix of different types of strategies, because as I said, there's no unique approach. There's no magic formula that can tell you, okay, go for price scheming or go for this, for that. You need to know, obviously, where you stand, your brand awareness, who are your clients, who are you targeting? You also need to know how your competitors' products are being priced, a similar one. They're not identical, obviously, but you still need to know how these type of products are being priced across different channels. You need to have that information. You need to know, again, as I said, your brand, where you want to position yourself. Is it a luxury brand? If it's not, are your buyers actually willing to pay a higher price because you're offering something extra? So I think there are various determinants here that could help you kind of set up, come with an optimum strategy mix. I would say, I really don't want to say go for this one or that one. I really think that you can take the best out of each one of them, because you also need to consider your product costs, obviously. That's something that you can never forget. You need to set up profit margin. So I cannot just say go for cost-oriented strategy, because that one disregards some other key factors. So I really think that you should kind of get the best out of each of these strategies and try to come up with your own mix, something that would fit your own needs. Right?
Yeah, great answer, Sanda. Thanks a lot. So there is actually a question about the number of speakers, further. So we only have now Jochen left to make his presentation, and now he needs to actually make a quick reconnection.
Okay.
And yeah, he's from Pricefx team. There is also one other maybe question where you might inject your biased answer, Sanda, and that's actually like obviously thanking you again for your great presentation. Thanks for the session, Sanda. And could you please name some of the software tools for dynamic pricing? So do you ever know any sort of software that does this type of dynamic pricing strategies?
Yes, it's Prisync where I'm currently working. That's the number one, I would say. And then obviously there are some others out there like Price to Spy. There's also Pricefx. I think they also have that part of helping reprice your products. There are various others, but these are, I would say, like the key one, like Price to Spy. Prisync obviously is number one.
Yeah.
I can name others later on the chat if.
Yeah, and also like the asker might also check out. There are platforms where you can actually list down every single pricing vendor, etc. For example, there is one called G2,
yes,
like G2.com, and you can see actually all various sorts of like pricing software vendors. And you can actually maybe identify 10, 15. I think as Joe like mentioned in the very beginning, our competition is also kind of intensifying. Yeah, there is like an answer from Jean, Net Rivals, Minderest. I think they are both Spanish. Price. There are quite a few, I would say. So like if you look at, if you do a quick simple Googling, I think you would end up with multiple. So John even provided a link. So yeah, there are quite a few, I would say. So many got long. Yeah, thanks, John, for the input. I think like if Johan already like reconnected, like a quick check maybe on the chat box. But well, even if he's not connected, I mean, your job here is perfectly done, Sanda. Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for the presentation, and I will see you soon. Yeah, Johan, how are you?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. All set?
Awesome, Paul. Perfect.
Is everything okay for you with the like technicalities, etc., or do you need further time?
Well, we will see in the moment. I will try share my screen. Let me give it a shot.
That's the hardest part of all, man. Like sharing your screen and making sure it works.
Don't jinx it, man. Don't jinx it.
Go ahead.
Here we go. So, can you guys see my screen?
Exactly. I'm leaving the stage to you. Yeah, go ahead.
So, can you guys see my screen? And you see it in a shared mode?
Exactly.
Perfect. Cool. So it was a perfect handover, to be honest, because Sanda just spoke about price discrimination. And this is what B2B is doing all along, right? I think this is one of the big differentiations which we see between B2B and B2C. And that you basically have, besides a willingness to pay by your customers in B2B, you can actually sometimes really afford a willingness to sell, like a differentiation in price points, which you address various different customer groups with. I'm here today because at Pricefx, we have vast experience with e-commerce and retail as one of the industries which we are focusing on out of the pricing software vendor perspective. But on the other hand, we also have a huge backbone in B2B sales, meaning in all the differentiations which in B2B is done on a customer level. And I'm here to speak about what B2B can learn from B2C, because guess what? B2B starts to discover the internet to be a reliable sales channel. It just took them like 20 years. So what I will do is I will speak a little about the current view on the market and the market development in general, about the omni-channel opportunities which are deriving from it. And maybe we can even afterwards in some Q&A or in some questions answered in general, re-engineer something which maybe B2B is already doing fairly well, but B2C has some potential to catching up with. I know price discrimination is normally a thing which is highly, it's very difficult in B2C, because obviously this is something Amazon has tried out like 12 years ago in the European market and failed tremendously with, like making different people pay different prices for the same thing. Especially as it went transparent. But in B2B, this is something which is completely common practice. And as B2B companies more and more start to enter the B2C market, this might be actually something we have to prepare for. So just some look on the current market development. And as I mentioned, I will mainly speak B2B here and do the link afterwards with regards to B2C in a second. For the first time ever, B2B companies are more likely to have e-commerce sales channels than they have in-person sales. So I'm not sure whom of you is engaging with B2B sales, but in these situations, normally you engage with, Prisync, Pricefx, we also have account executives, right? So we have people who are getting approached by prospects who are interested in buying, for example, software. This can also be buying goods, buying services, whatever people are looking for. And normally you speak to people, right? You speak to somebody who's explaining you the service, who's explaining you the product and the superiority, and gives you the possibility to negotiate a certain price point down to a net price level, which you might be feeling comfortable with. But the first time since ever, B2B companies are starting to rely on e-commerce over in-person sales, which is, again, it comes out of a study I linked in the slide too, done by McKinsey. McKinsey also reports that 65% of all B2B companies across the industry do transactions online. So they have their own e-commerce shop, and they have the possibility to log in, and they have the possibility to, visualize net prices on an article-specific level based on your login credentials, considering all your discount structures, all your net price agreements, which you initially have negotiated, and in some cases, even also considering rebates as off-invoice claims when you have reached a certain sales volume at the end of the year, and you actually get your money back because you have reached the sales volume as a kickback. Online sales and B2B e-commerce sites and login portals, as well as marketplaces, increased by 20%, close to 20% in 2021, up to $1.6 trillion US. And Statista actually predicts this going up until 2025 to $4.5 trillion US. So tremendous growth, which we see there, and prediction is even more crazy when it comes to that. So this is definitely something we have to focus on, and we also will have to, as B2C companies, will have to consider to be like a viable competition which we are facing in the future. Because in most situations with e-commerce shops, what we're doing is, in a lot of cases, is reselling the products from other manufacturers. But having these manufacturers entering the markets is actually something which we will have to deal with in the short term. And last but not least, Gartner, as one of the rating agencies, which most likely was mentioned previously next to G2, is expecting that 85% of all business contact will be in 2022 be done without interacting directly with a human. This doesn't mean Skype. So I was also surprised by the definition there, but it basically means that if you communicate via Teams, via Skype, via Zoom with somebody, it still counts as a non-human contact because you haven't shaken the hand. But in general, this is also something which is moving in the direction of digitalization. So the e-commerce trends which we are seeing in B2B are fairly standard for us, I would assume, as people who are engaging normally with B2C. So I will go through them fairly fast, right? So one of these aspects is leaving legacy systems behind. While the average age of e-commerce companies is not necessarily something which you count in 2 digits when it comes to years, in B2B, this is something where, well, if you are under 10 years, people will look at you with like a certain smirk in their face, because in B2B, companies normally count in the dozens or in the 20s or in the 50s of years, right? So think about Bosch being a company in the market, looking now to discover e-commerce channels. This is a company which exists like 120 years. So these guys, they have a lot of legacy systems, super old ERP systems, super old data warehouses, sometimes not even PIM systems available. Transactional data just being available in a very raw format in their business intelligence system. So one of the huge trends which we are currently seeing is unification of systems and like getting rid of legacy systems, moving into a more digital age to being able to act more fast and more structured across channels. Second thing, again, something we most likely will smile a little bit at, but fulfill orders even faster. So in B2B, it was normal that delivery sometimes takes 3 days as a minimum, right? So everything which is faster than 3 days was considered rocket speed. And nowadays, same-day delivery is an extra service B2B companies make their customers pay for quite frequently. So fulfilling orders even faster is something which becomes more and more in focus. Selling across third-party marketplaces, like, again, we know Amazon FBA, we know marketplaces like Otto, like others, especially in Central Europe. But this is something which is fairly new to B2B companies. But we see now the Boschs of these worlds starting to sell via FBA. We see them on eBay. We see them on comparison engines. So also these will start to build up some tractions over these third-party online marketplaces in order to sell their products there. Personalization of shopping. This is actually something which they do since the beginning, right? They do price discrimination. Price personalization is something which they do since the beginning, because maybe there's a list price of 199 euros, but you get these 12% because it's in this product group, and you get these 5% because you're in this region. And at the end of the day, you pay a net price, which is not even at all reflected by the list price which you see on the shelf. So personalization is one thing, but also doing this personalization in the online shopping experience. And last but not least, investing in e-commerce platform technology. Like you hear correctly, this is still not the norm, but it is something which is vastly increasing. So if you speak to any provider, like why has SAP purchased Hybris a couple years ago? Well, there is a reason for that, because they start to offer like a seamless embedded commerce cloud experience, which their B2B companies also can bring to the market, which perfectly fine integrates also with marketplaces, with channel advisor and stuff like this. So they are going there. And this is something we as B2C focused people might actually see as a threat for the future. So why do they do this? Well, I think this is also something Sanda has said, so I will piggyback a little bit on her comment already, but you always have to ask yourself two questions, right? And one of the questions is, which kind of value do you provide to your customers, and who is your customer? So in the US, it is also already now perfectly fine that price transparency is one of the main factors when it comes to buying a certain product online, right? So price is already now a factor which is considered, especially with commodity, to be one of the main decision drivers. I'm not sure what is the experience of people who are still with us in the chat, but like how much traffic do you get from Idealo, Google Shopping, these price like comparison homepages? So in e-commerce, especially in commodity, if you are not like an established player and you have like a huge market share, most of your traffic most likely will come from comparison homepages, and therefore positioning yourself according to your pricing strategy, according to your channel strategy on these different like marketplaces, on these different comparison homepages is giving you a huge advantage, but also obviously is a huge threat if you don't control this in a centralized manner. Product availability, right? If you don't have a product, people will most likely not purchase it, even if you have it on stock tomorrow. So product availability and giving alternatives to the products which you might be selling in order to generate the desired added value is a factor which is a possibility to differentiate against competition. So having, like, I will stick with my Bosch Power Tools example because this is something which is fairly recent to me, but if you buy a certain hand drill from Bosch, you most likely will find various different products offered on the Bosch website, but maybe the one which you have looked on in specific, this one is out of stock. Well, there is like 10 different alternatives which might be giving you added value, which might be a little bit cheaper in price because they lack a certain functionality, but it gives you the possibility via recommendation engine to visualize availability and keep the conversion in your stores and stocks. 60% of all online shoppers consider 24/7 availability as the main reason for using e-commerce, right? So this is something B2B companies most likely were fairly surprised by, but people actually don't necessarily want to have human interaction when they purchase stuff. Like online is like the perfect argument as well as the best proof point for that. But we see that a lot of people basically say, well, I just want to buy whenever I want to buy whatever I want, and I want to get it delivered to my doorstep immediately, and that's all I want to care about. So this aspect, like 24/7 shopping, is a huge factor which B2B companies never were able to cater before. With web shops and net pricing represented in their web shops, they actually can. Combining the shelves, the self-service aspect with the knowledge and benefits of speaking to a sales rep is key, right? So Sanda, I think, is a sales insights expert from Prisync. So she most likely can speak to that there's a lot of information people will gather before before they contact her and speak about the services of Prisync or any other provider of pricing software and data. But at the end of the day, this combination of it is key. And this is the same in B2B. a lot of companies have product information on the internet, right? That you can see, well, this is a certain product, these are the services which are coming with it, this is a warranty which is included, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, having the possibility to authenticate or to reconfirm the contact or the information which you have gathered with the experience of a sales rep is actually something in a combination B2B is using fairly often, and also to a way higher intent in future. And last but not least, combining B2B elements such as quoting with e-commerce experience will give a unique symbiosis for B2B companies. So I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with quoting. Sometimes it's called spot business. Sometimes it's called special price agreements. It basically means you already have a certain discount agreement with a company, but you still reach out to squeeze a little bit more out of it. And this is something which you can do fully automized, and you can as a B2B company, you can connect this to via your web shop against an artificial intelligence, providing the right negotiational boundaries for a bot, like for an automation, but also to your sales reps, which might be going into negotiation to get the conversion for like a bigger shopping basket, which needs some renegotiation across the line. So, and to sum this up, the current view on the market, e-commerce channels become industry standard in B2B. We see that the automation of sales with customer-specific web shops is something which is growing more and more, and obviously also opens up different requirements when it comes to pricing. And also the personalization of offer is done as much as possible, because people just see that with the personalization of offering, they increase their conversion rate significantly. Like customer loyalty goes up, and therefore these net price agreements and the possibility to give people certain discount structure and incentivize them for producing recurring revenue is something B2B has done for years and decades already. With web shops and with internet in general as a sales channel, they can industrialize this even further. So speaking about the omni-channel challenges which you have as a B2B company when engaging, right? Because the world was quite simple. The world was easy when it comes to selling products in general as a B2B company. There was a customer and there was your company, and the customer approached you and asked for a price for a specific product, and you told them it's 199 euros, and they purchased it, and everything, single thing was fine. You started to make profit, you increased your assortment. But then as you increased your assortment, not every single one in your company could know what the prices on certain products are or what the relationship to this specific customer is. So you started to hire a sales force, and every single time a customer approaches you for a price, he connects to your sales force. The sales force needs to check the product, the availability, the cost structure, the prices, and give you a price point, and the customer purchase products. Well, but now you have to expand into different markets. You want to sell in other regions where you don't necessarily want to open up a headquarter. So what you do is you build up distributors. So you use distributors which are purchasing your products. This is most likely the vendors of all our e-commerce audience in our chat currently. Every single time somebody wants to purchase something, first of all, the customer reaches out to the distributor reaches out and negotiates certain frame agreements with Salesforce on the manufacturer side, obviously reinsures about availability, cost structures, the discount structures, and all these nice things. And then the customer can purchase the product from the distributor and gets it shipped to his doorstep. And then there's the internet, right? So you have the internet, you have mobile apps, well, the internet in general as a sales channel, right? You have the possibility to do this also online or via your phone. So this is another sales channel people can use. And last but not least, you also have marketplaces, and marketplaces are also something everybody can use, right? So at the end of the day, what you see is, first of all, these 3 additional sales channels which just popped up out of nowhere also have to be managed. So what you do is you build up another desk, which is another department in your company, which is managing and maintaining the pricing for all these channels. But as a company, as a manufacturer, having these complex distribution channels and the possibility to purchase the products over all these different channels as one simple customer, what you will start to struggle with is consistency of pricing and standardization of pricing. Because what you want to do as an organization is you want to incentivize people to choose the cheapest and most affordable sales channel you have as an organization, which is most likely online, because every single time people speak to people, people cost money. Every single time you purchase, people sell via a distributor, the distributor will make a cut, they will make a margin. And as an organization, you will have to manage and centralize all these kind of touch points one specific customer is having. And then you will also have to prepare for all the different forms of customer you're having, like industry customers, like distributors, like companies which are just taking this like your goods and remanufacturing them, resellers, e-commerce companies just reselling the stuff. And there might be even additional sales channel popping up, which we don't know about yet, but they will be there in future. I recently have had a good discussion with somebody who actually considers the marketplace on TikTok to be like a relevant sales channel, and they want to do dynamic pricing for it. Can we do it? Yes, obviously, but at the end of the day, is this something I have foreseen 2 years ago? Absolutely not. So this challenge B2B companies are engaging with is just extremely difficult for them to centrally manage. And then there is also complexity coming with pricing, right? Because you have products which you price differently. Sanda gave perfect examples for that: competitive-based strategies, cost-based strategies, penetration strategies, and so on and so forth. So obviously you are differentiating your pricing strategies between different product groups you're engaging with, and differentiation between different product groups and market and different manufacturers, and so on and so forth. But then you have customer differentiation. You want to be sure that you are treating loyal customer which are doing business with you since 30 years and do like huge transactions with you, get treated in a different way than somebody who's anonymously shopping in your shop and just leaving immediately afterwards. You want to internationalize these prices. You don't want to offer gray markets any chance to like appear out of nothing. So you don't want to have situations where it is cheaper to order stuff in France and get it shipped to Germany instead of like ordering into Germany directly, by the way, which I'm doing continuously, because in France on Amazon, delivery to Germany is $3.99, and products are in a lot of cases just like 12-15% cheaper. You want to differentiate according to different channels, right? You have different e-commerce channels, and there you most likely want to have a different pricing in your own web shop versus Amazon FBA versus on Google Shopping versus on Idealo and all the other comparison homepages and other marketplaces which you're using. And therefore, you also need to differentiate your prices according to these different channels. So the complexity which you are facing as a B2B company, besides others, obviously, is just tremendous when you look on market growth. And therefore, just like a simple math, right? If you look on an assortment of 40,000 SKUs which you're serving, and you have 10,000 customers you are serving to, and you do this in 5 different countries, and you have 3 different channels, this basically means you have at any given time to manage 6 billion different price points in a system, in a responsive, up-to-date, and hopefully with your pricing strategy aligned fashion. So just let these information tickle down a little. 6 billion price points, which most likely, who's responsible for pricing in your company? How many people are carrying this out currently? And think about doing this without software support. It's basically not possible. Especially when you consider that most of these things are actually done continuously by Excel. Like I have seen things in Excel I personally wouldn't believe or tell it's possible, but it's a great tool, but also Excel has its limits, right? So I'm not sure if it's just a quantitative limit, but also a qualitative at a certain point of time. And at a certain level, it just makes sense to automate and industrialize the challenge which is coming with all these different channels to B2B companies as well as to B2C companies. So in B2B, you follow something which is called the price waterfall. A price waterfall basically means that you generate like a list price, right? So this is what we would consider a shelf price. You normally differentiate the shelf prices between different countries or different regions in order to make sure that you accommodate for, well, factors which are something like regional purchase power, right? So most like I'm living in Eastern Germany. Eastern Germany is very poor. Everybody knows this. So in Eastern Germany, the prices can definitely be a little bit lower than all my friends, which are living in Frankfurt, which are living in Munich and Hamburg, like super rich cities, huge incomes. So they can definitely pay a little bit more. Well, I'm joking, obviously, but you do pretty much this, but on a country by country level, in order to skim a little and make sure that the willingness to pay as well as the purchase power of different countries is reflected in your pricing, as well as you most likely have to engage afterwards with negotiational structures. So there are countries which are extremely used to be extremely strong in negotiation, while there are other countries which are perfectly fine buying on list price because they assume list price is being fair. So it's a cliche, but for example, in Asia, it is extremely common to negotiate 40 to 60% of discounts on the list price, while in Germany, the average is somewhere between 18 and up to 32, something like this. So it really depends on the region you are in, and this is obviously something which you want to reflect in a local list price, because if not, based on discounts which you negotiate with your customers, this will be eaten up, and every single increase which you can do on list price level most likely gets eaten up on your invoice price level. Then you have off-invoice discounts, which are rebates. So if you reach 100,000 in sales, you get 1% back. You come up with a net price. You have your cost of goods, your cost of sales, and all the cost points which are coming with it, like freight and so on, which are ending up at your gross profit. We at Pricefx, we can manage every single one of these steps. So we are offering price setting functionality to do dynamic pricing for various different channels. We do this for companies like MediaMarkt Saturn, like Fressnapf, like others, which I'm happy to discuss with you, but most likely in a more private setting. We have the possibility to set up every single agreement and promotion, which you either have on a customer-specific level or on a sales channel-specific level. We can support quoting, we can support deal planning and account management on a bigger scale. We can manage rebates and channel management, sales compensation in order to calculate the bonus of your sales force properly, as well as analytics and end-to-end optimization. So using an AI technology to propose the right prices following your pricing strategy as well as your constraints and objectives. So the opportunities to grasp for B2B when it comes to learning from B2C are fairly straightforward. For us, they are mostly something which we have seen before, but so I will go a little bit faster through it. So we have maybe a little bit time for Q&A afterwards. But what I want to talk about is use additional personalization data to improve pricing consistency and optimization in general. Educate the market about alternatives and increase shopping baskets by recommendation engines. Provide additional information on product availability and price to win traffic. And last but not least, guide low maintenance traffic with proper incentives to online channels. So personalization for optimization is something which is very common in B2B. So you use customer and product attributes and their customer purchasing behavior and their willingness to pay, the demand elasticity, which we can derive from transactional data in order to make sure that for specific customers which are ordering specific products in a certain channel, the right prices are proposed with maybe even negotiational frameworks, which can be used either in an automized fashion or can be used in a negotiation with an actual human. But with B2C, we have better information at hand, which we can utilize and empower the B2B optimization engines even further. So data which we normally use, as I mentioned already, is like the product attributes and the data which comes with the products, customer information, transactional data. But with using of web shops, we have the possibility to provide information to B2B companies, which was not there before. And this data is something like product affinity, right? So based on recommendation engines, we can learn which products normally get sold with each other. So we can do better shopping basket analysis. We can see what people are looking at before they are purchasing it. We can look at clickstream data in general. We can look at shopping baskets and do sensitivity analysis. And we obviously can also look on things like bounce rates in order to make sure that we utilize this information to derive any information which we can when it comes to price points and price sensitivity of our logged-in customers. When it comes to educate on alternatives, it is also something which I would consider fairly common for us, because in e-commerce, roughly 80% of the assortment account for 2% of the sales, right? You have your top sellers where you make most of your turnover with. Then you have a lot of dead wood, which you might have segmented into a certain group of products which you're treating differently. But what you actually can do is you can educate your customer on your portfolio depth with using the information for context-specific offering. So this example with the French pillow and the Dutch pillow is a little stupid, but I think it gets the point across. For us, it is extremely important to offer the right product at the right point of time to increase shopping baskets and also the profit which is coming with it. So using information and educating customers on portfolio depth and alternatives which we're having in our assortment is key in order to increase and win shopping baskets. Well, saying this, insights to win traffic and shopping baskets. I think this is also something I already touched, but 85% of all buyers say, and this mainly reflects on B2B companies again, but 85% of all buyers say that they found the supplier rather than the other way around. So it was not necessarily your campaign which you had on Instagram which brought them to your channel, but it was a research which they did, and then they stumbled over your campaign. So in average, buyers consume 10 different pieces of information or of content before they are engaging with a potential supplier. I'm guilty of that as a person, because if I want to buy something, this includes like a multi-day research on alternatives, on compatibility and stuff like this in order to make the perfect decision. And then I just look where I can get this product in the most reliable way, in the fastest way, and most likely also in the most affordable way. But this makes product information as well as additional information on prices, net prices, potential negotiation points, potential key differentiators which you have with your products, maybe with your own brands against the competition, more and more relevant. Because if you can communicate these advantages you are having as a store, as a company, you can produce key differentiators and use unique selling points which you can bring into the market, and you can make sure that at the end of the day, people actually rather give you the traffic when they purchase certain products. And last but not least, spending effort where it makes the most difference. This is something which, again, is very B2B relevant, and therefore B2B companies have the possibility to learn something there from B2C, definitely. Cost pressure rises, right? So inflation is currently hitting us fairly hard. Availability of products is not necessarily given at any single point of time. And therefore, the usage of cost, for example, for a sales force, is more and more important to do in a smart way. So it's very important to utilize the resources which you're having at the points where it makes the most difference. This, for example, can reflect in a pricing strategy where you used a scoring algorithm in order to detect which products are reacting the most sensitive to price changes, which are core products which you use as anchors to drive the traffic to your shopping, to your web shop, and then you make your margin with accessories. But this also is the same for B2B companies, because they have sales, right? They have sales representatives, and these people are crazily expensive. Like I speak from experience. So what happens there is that you as a company, you want to make sure to use a web shop to funnel. So what you most likely want to do is you want to make sure that whenever there is a huge shopping cart, like somebody piled up a huge order, that you are not directly checking out this customer, but in order to build a customer relationship, you are reaching out via sales reps to them and make sure that this big quotation is negotiated properly, they feel treated fairly, and they most likely afterwards will come back with regards to the human touch. Well, smaller quotation can get covered by an algorithm, right? Even on a negotiational base. So if I do a shopping basket, which is like 2,000 euros for a B2B company, and they reach out for me to a quotation, chances are very little that the human person is touching this. This most likely gets funneled through directly to an algorithm, which is proposing an optimal discount on top of it in order to automate this as far as possible, plus making sure that the conversion actually stays with us. So using artificial intelligence, guidance, and like in general, the possibility to derive from your historical transactions information about customer behavior and their behavior about how they react to certain net price proposals is a huge advantage B2B will have to leverage in future, and making sure that as well as their right sales channels knows about this information, as well as the human people, like actually the Salesforce negotiation offers. And last but not least, automation can bring down the cost of sales. Like most B2B companies, specifically distributors I'm currently speaking with, they want to funnel in future more than 80 to 90% of their sales through online in a self-service fashion to bring down costs, to free up resources for the negotiations on a global account level, where like a human touch actually makes a difference, and where it not comes to just a replenishment based on certain spare parts. Last but not least, omni-channel opportunities and requirements. Customer expectations are growing. This is obviously something which comes with B2C, and all of you can sing a song about that. But so are the possibilities to answer. And this is really the possibility for B2B companies to learn from the experiences we have gathered over 10, 20 years in the B2C environment, and apply them and make sure that they don't fall into the same pitfalls we have struggled through over the last years. That's me. Open for questions.
Well, thanks a lot for all the material, Jochen. Great presentation as expected. Well, after listening to you, and especially during the exile part, I discussed this with Joe in the context of inviting an academician to next year's event. So after your presentation, I thought the same for maybe inviting exile's product manager to one of the coming events to actually say maybe like his opinions about exile's importance in pricing managers' lives. Because we also sort of not compete, but we sort of also try to cooperate and compete at the same time with ExileFile. And people are, I think, still managing prices manually more common than in an automated way. And I think that's what both of our companies are trying to sort of change in a nice way, so to save time. And beyond saving time, as you rightfully said, I think inflation is sort of like forcing people to think like efficiently. So in your context, like just allocating resources for the big quotations instead of rather smaller ones makes absolute sense. So now we have, I think, as this is kind of the last presentation, you had the privilege of extending a gift, Jochen. So no worries at all. No one is kind of waiting like after you. So if we have any questions for Johann's part, actually, we can still, just to make it fair, have one or maybe two questions for Jochen before we just wrap up the event. But like as people are probably like typing in something, a question or two, I would also like to thank you and the whole Pricefx team for taking part in this like World Pricing Day. I believe you guys are a very influential, very major, let's say, player of the ecosystem. I think you guys are really doing a great job with democratizing pricing. Making it more relevant maybe is the best way to say it. So like making people prioritize pricing in a strategic way is actually what you guys are doing. And I really feel very like inclined towards that as well. So like thanks a lot for taking part in that. So Matt, your colleague, is saying well done to you. Amy is also thanking you. Michael is thanking. Carla is also thanking you. We have a question actually from David. How could codes work or integrate with web shops? He's asking.
It's a very good question. It's actually something I discovered the first time when I spoke to one of our customers, which is Conrad Electronic. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the company. They were a main B2C company in the beginning, having like 120 brick and mortar stores, consumer electronics to follow Sanda's comment, like this is extremely competitive. It really goes down to like very, very thin margins. So the purchasing conditions are extremely important in order to be competitive in the market. With their 120 brick and mortar stores and their online channels, they made something about $1 billion in turnover. And what they have seen over the time is that they actually are functioning way better in a B2B environment and as a marketplace. So they built up a huge marketplace, which now has something like 5 million products in overall, which obviously require pricing, because as a normal consumer, you can go on this and purchase your stuff. But at the end of the day, this is also open for B2B companies. So for them, as Conrad Electronic, it is extremely important, and actually the main focus for the future, as they have closed down most of their stores in Germany, except of one, the B2B business. So for them, having discount structures which are feeding into a web shop, having rebate structures and off-invoice conditions, and also quotes are a huge thing. And what they have built is that if you are putting certain products into your shopping basket and you are reaching a certain critical limit, instead of proceeding directly to the checkout, you can request a quotation automatically. This is just a button which populates via an API the shopping basket, the information about who's the purchasing person, like if we have an account to that, if we have a customer number to that. Via an API, we receive an automatic quote request. This gets automatically calculated with net price structures, with negotiational frameworks and stuff like this. And in a lot of cases also can be completely automized with regards to a reply. So this can be done in a couple of milliseconds to provide like a net price recommendation to customers. But this can also mean for like bigger quotations, if they request a quotation, that this is via API generated as a quote in Pricefx, but then can be renegotiated with the customer in a direct manner. So the customer, like the account executive, can use the information from the quote, contact the customer directly, renegotiate the offering, maybe even add some services, some warranties, some spare parts, increase the volume of this shopping basket, and then when done, click on a button in Pricefx, which is approve the quote. If there's no approval processes, this populates the shopping basket, and the customer can proceed and check this out, and we can calculate based on this also like a quote conversion rate and stuff like this. So this is possible with hybrid stores in specific, but as the API is open, you can do this from every single web shop you have in mind.
Got it. Yeah, sounds pretty seamless. Actually, I think we can do with one question for now, because we only have this one, and I think not many people are typing in. But
that's cool.
Still. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Jochen. Again and again, thanks for the Pricefx team. And maybe just to wrap up, I would like to thank every single attendee participant. So talk to you later, Jochen. I will kind of quickly wrap up the day, and just again maybe thank once again to everyone. So just to quickly share my screen for the thank you part maybe, and maybe sharing one last time about the quiz we planned for today. So as I mentioned, maybe I can even do this without sharing my screen. So as I mentioned in the beginning and multiple times in between, our team will be sending a few let's say questions in a quiz format, and if you respond to them in a correct way, you will get 3 very nice pricing books as a maybe memory, as a gift for this event. And once again, I would like to thank every single participant of this event. Whoever maybe couldn't even make this live will still get the recording. So we had plenty of attendees like signups, etc. that probably couldn't make, maybe because of their busy day, because it's Friday. It also depends. But I really thank everyone for taking part in this very first World Pricing Day, which is 100% going to be repeated and actually going to be like celebrated, I would say, every single year, alongside various other partners that we would add into the lineup and that we would add into the agenda. And as I also mentioned in the very beginning, anyone is more than welcome to contribute to the next year's agenda and the following year's agenda in regards to content types, in regards to content formats, in regards to speaker, maybe personas, etc. If you would like to be a speaker, feel free to contact us. If you are actually doing something in the context of pricing, which we really didn't discuss today, for example, in Joe's session, we tried to target talent. For example, in Jochen, we tried to talk about B2B and its resemblance with B2C. Sanda tried to talk with, in the context of e-commerce. So if we ever missed any context, a major context of pricing, feel free to shoot an email to our team so that we can discuss maybe about it in the coming year's event. But all in all, thanks for everyone for tuning in, for being part of World Pricing Day. Hope to see you in next year's World Pricing Day in 2023. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.